If you don't subscribe to the channel, all the stories will happen to you. Get ready for the nightmare. Maya had always considered herself a rational person, someone who thrived on logic and reason. So when she stumbled upon the dusty old journal while cleaning out her late grandmother's attic, she was not prepared for the wave of unease that washed over her. The attic was dimly lit, with beams of sunlight streaming through small, grimy windows, casting eerie shadows that danced across the floor. The journal, bound in cracked leather, was hidden beneath a pile of yellowed newspapers and forgotten trinkets. Curiosity piqued. Maya brushed off the dust and opened the journal. The first few pages were filled with her grandmother's delicate script, detailing mundane events and family gatherings. But as she turned further into the book, the entries became darker, hinting at secrets her grandmother had kept hidden for years. It was unsettling, yet something compelled Maya to read on. The last entry, dated decades ago, made her heart race. It simply read, "I must remember to keep it hidden, for my name is not mine alone. It belongs to those who came before me." The sentence echoed in Maya's mind, raising questions that left her feeling cold and apprehensive. What could her grandmother possibly mean? With a mixture of dread and intrigue, Maya continued reading, but her heart sank when she realized that the journal abruptly ended. There were no explanations, no follow-ups, only a lingering silence that felt heavy in the air. Feeling a chill crawl up her spine, Maya closed the journal and put it aside. She tried to shake off the unsettling feeling, but it clung to her like a shadow. Determined to make sense of her grandmother's cryptic message, Maya decided to explore the attic further. The cluttered space held memories of her childhood, and the familiar scent of old wood and dust enveloped her. As she rummaged through boxes, she found more personal items: a locket, a set of tarnished silver spoons, and an old photograph of her grandmother as a young woman, smiling brightly. But amid the treasures, her fingers brushed against something cold and metallic. She pulled out a small, intricately designed box that felt strangely significant. The surface was engraved with swirling patterns that seemed to tell a story of their own. Heart-pounding, Maya opened it, revealing an array of objects, rings, trinkets, and at the bottom, a folded piece of parchment. Unfolding the parchment carefully, Maya's breath caught in her throat. There, written in an elegant hand, was her name, Maya Elizabeth Dawson. It was both thrilling and terrifying to see her name inscribed in a place so shrouded in mystery. The sensation of being watched swept over her again, as if the very walls of the attic held secrets meant to be uncovered. "What is this?" she whispered to herself, her mind racing with possibilities. Could this be a sign? Or was it a cruel joke? The idea that her name was linked to a dark legacy began to creep into her thoughts, igniting a mix of fear and fascination. Maya decided she couldn't ignore it. She needed answers. Gathering her courage, she slipped the parchment into her pocket and left the attic, her mind swirling with questions. As she descended the stairs, she recalled a conversation she had overheard years ago between her mother and grandmother about an old family curse, one that had been passed down through generations. Was it possible that this curse was tied to her name? The thought sent shivers down her spine. Later that evening, sitting in her dimly lit living room, Maya spread the contents of the box across the coffee table, her heart racing. She carefully inspected each item, hoping to find a clue that would explain the significance of her name being written in the box. Each ring held its own story, and she wondered who had worn them before her. She recalled stories her grandmother had told her about their ancestors, about their struggles and the dark shadows that loomed over their family. But none of those tales had ever mentioned anything like this. Nothing about names etched in darkness, or the weight they carried. Feeling a sense of urgency, Maya decided to visit the local library the next day. She had to dig deeper into her family's past, searching for any references that might connect her to the name in the box. As she arrived at the library, the musty scent of old books greeted her. She headed straight to the genealogy section, poring over records and documents. Hours flew by as she traced her family lineage, each discovery building a more complex picture of her ancestors. But no matter how hard she searched, she found nothing that hinted at the mysteries she now felt entangled in. Just as she was about to give up, she stumbled across a small, weathered book titled The Dawson Family, legends, and lore. It seemed to be an account of the family's history, filled with tales of their struggles, triumphs, and the shadows that lurked in the corners of their lives. As she flipped through the pages, a particular story caught her attention. It told of a family member, a distant relative, who had vanished under mysterious circumstances. The tale spoke of strange occurrences leading up to the disappearance, including whispers of names being etched into dark places, hidden secrets that could not be unearthed without consequences. Maya's heart raced as she read on. The account suggested that those who bore the name Dawson were destined to confront the darkness that had plagued their family for generations. A shiver ran down her spine as the realization settled in. This was not just a story, it was a warning. Suddenly, Maya felt an overwhelming urge to return to her grandmother's house, to confront whatever shadows lay within its walls. She could not allow the past to dictate her future. Armed with the knowledge she had gathered, she steeled herself for what awaited her in that dark place. The drive to her grandmother's house felt like an eternity. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the road, and the air was thick with an unsettling silence. Maya's heart pounded in her chest as she recalled the journal, the box, and the cryptic mention of her name. The story she had unearthed gnawed at her mind, igniting a determination she didn't know she possessed. Upon arriving, the familiar sight of her grandmother's house stirred a whirlwind of emotions within her: nostalgia, fear, and an unshakable sense of purpose. The house, with its creaking floors and peeling paint, loomed before her like a sentinel of secrets. As she stepped inside, the musty air enveloped her, and she felt a rush of memories flood back. The laughter, the warmth, and the love that had once filled these rooms, now overshadowed by the dark legacy she had begun to uncover. Maya made her way to the attic, the scene of her earlier discovery. Each step up the staircase echoed loudly, amplifying her anxiety. She remembered the feeling of being watched, the sense of something lurking just beyond her perception. This time, however, she was not just an observer. She was a seeker, armed with questions that demanded answers. As she opened the attic door, the dim light revealed the remnants of her grandmother's life. The box, now a pivotal artifact in her journey, was still resting on the table where she had left it. She approached it with cautious resolve, her breath hitching as she reached for the old journal. Sitting cross-legged on the dusty floor, Maya opened it to the last entry, the one that had haunted her thoughts. "I must remember to keep it hidden, for my name is not mine alone." She pondered the meaning behind those words. Why had her grandmother felt the need to hide it? What was it about the name that held such power? Determined to dig deeper, Maya began to sift through the items in the box once more. She had found her name etched in a dark place. But was there something more? Beneath the trinkets, she discovered another folded piece of parchment. Her hands trembled as she pulled it out and unfolded it. The parchment contained a map, old and faded, with a red X marking a spot in the woods behind the house. A chill raced down her spine. The woods had always been a place of mystery and unease, especially during twilight. Something compelled her to investigate further. Perhaps this was where the shadows of her family's past resided. Maya grabbed a flashlight from the attic and made her way back downstairs, the anticipation building with each step. As she stepped into the cool evening air, the weight of her family's history loomed over her like a storm cloud. The trees whispered in the breeze, their branches swaying as if urging her to proceed. The path to the woods was familiar, yet it felt different under the cloak of night. With every crunch of leaves beneath her feet, Maya's heart raced. She recalled the tales of her childhood, stories her grandmother told her about spirits that wandered the woods and secrets that lay buried beneath the roots. Now, it felt as if those tales were coming alive. When she reached the marked spot on the map, a sense of foreboding washed over her. The trees loomed tall and thick, their twisted branches reaching out like fingers. Shining her flashlight around, she spotted an old, dilapidated shed partially hidden by overgrowth. It looked as if it hadn't been touched in decades. Maya hesitated but pushed through the fear gripping her. This shed could hold the answer she sought. As she approached, she noticed the door hung slightly ajar, creaking ominously as the wind picked up. Gathering her courage, she pushed it open. Inside, the air was thick with dust, and the smell of damp would fill her nostrils. The flashlight beam illuminated shelves lined with forgotten items, rusty tools, old cans, and what looked like a trunk covered in cobwebs. Heart pounding, she stepped closer, the weight of her family's legacy pressing heavily on her shoulders. Maya knelt beside the trunk and pried it open. Inside, she found a collection of faded photographs, some depicting family members she recognized, others unfamiliar. But what caught her attention was a small, ornate mirror resting at the bottom. It was intricately designed, and she felt an inexplicable pull toward it. As she lifted the mirror from the trunk, she glanced at her reflection. The light flickered, casting shadows that danced behind her. For a brief moment, she thought she saw another figure standing behind her, but when she turned around, there was nothing, just the rustling of leaves outside. Shaking off the chill that raced down her spine, Maya examined the mirror more closely. Its surface shimmered in the dim light, revealing not just her reflection, but something darker, a fleeting image of a child, wide-eyed and pleading, trapped in the glass. The vision sent a jolt of fear through her, but it also ignited a burning need to uncover the truth. "Who are you?" she whispered, unsure if she was speaking to the image in the mirror or to herself. As she stared into the depths of the glass, the air around her grew colder, and she felt the presence of something, or someone, drawing closer. A soft, haunting voice echoed in her mind, whispering her name. Maya. The darkness of the shed seemed to thicken, and she felt an overwhelming sense of urgency. The stories of her family were not just legends, they were warnings. And now, it was clear that her journey was only beginning. Maya's heart raced as the voice faded into an unsettling silence, leaving her in a state of bewilderment. The mirror in her hands felt heavier now, as if it held not just a reflection, but a piece of her family's haunted past. The child she had seen, who was she? And why did she feel such a connection to this strange figure? Taking a deep breath, Maya stepped back, her instincts urging her to flee, yet her curiosity anchored her in place. She needed answers, and they were buried somewhere within the shadows of her family history. Her grandmother had always mentioned the importance of confronting the past, and now it felt like a necessary confrontation. With the mirror tucked under her arm, she began to sift through the trunk's contents. Each photograph she examined seemed to reveal more about the family dynamics she had been unaware of. Faces that once appeared warm and inviting now wore expressions of sadness and fear. Among the photographs, she found a worn envelope sealed with an intricate wax emblem, one she recognized from her grandmother's belongings. Curiosity piqued, she carefully pried it open. Inside was a letter, written in her grandmother's delicate script. "My dearest Maya, if you are reading this, then you have found the truth that I tried to keep hidden. Our family has long been entangled in shadows, and there are things that must never see the light of day. There are truths you are meant to discover, but tread carefully, for the past has a way of finding those who seek it." Maya felt a chill sweep through her as she read the words. The weight of the responsibility was almost unbearable. She glanced back at the mirror, the haunting image of the child lingering in her mind. What had her grandmother feared so deeply? As if in answer, the wind howled outside, sending a shiver down her spine. The air grew heavy with a palpable tension, and she felt as though she was not alone in the shed. Shadows danced around her, and a sense of urgency pushed her to gather her findings. "I have to know," she murmured to herself, steeling her resolve. She carefully placed the mirror and the letter back in the trunk and decided to return to the house. The attic was where she had found the journal, and it was time to piece together the fragments of her family's dark legacy. Maya retraced her steps through the woods, the oppressive weight of the night making her feel as if the shadows were reaching out to pull her back. She quickened her pace, her flashlight beam flickering ominously, illuminating the path ahead. As she approached the house, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her from the treeline. Once inside, she made her way to the attic, the familiar creak of the stairs a haunting reminder of the past. The journal awaited her, and she hoped it would provide clarity to the puzzle. As she opened it, the faint sound of whispers filled the room, sending a chill down her spine. "Dear Maya," she read aloud, her voice breaking the heavy silence. "There are stories that were never meant to be forgotten. Our family has been haunted for generations, and only by understanding our past can we break free from its grasp. Determined, she flipped through the pages, searching for anything that could connect the pieces. Her fingers brushed over sketches and notes, but one entry caught her eye, an illustration of the mirror she had found. Underneath, her grandmother had written, "The portal to the lost." Maya's heart raced. A portal? Could the mirror hold the key to understanding the child she had seen? She needed to know more. Suddenly, a loud thud echoed through the attic, causing her to jump. The air felt charged, heavy with an unseen force. Maya's instinct screamed at her to leave, but her curiosity pushed her to investigate. She carefully made her way toward the source of the noise, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. At the far end of the attic, she discovered an old trunk, slightly ajar. Had she overlooked it before? She hesitated, the unease creeping back into her mind, but she couldn't ignore the feeling that whatever was inside could provide more answers. Maya knelt beside the trunk and lifted the lid. Inside, she found more old photographs, but what truly drew her attention was a small, weathered diary, its pages yellowed with age. As she opened it, she saw the familiar handwriting of her grandmother. April 14th, 1975. I hear her crying again. The child in the mirror is desperate, reaching out for help. I must find a way to save her before it's too late. Maya's breath caught in her throat. Who was the child, and why was she trapped in the mirror? Suddenly, the attic door slammed shut, plunging the room into darkness. Panic surged through her as she fumbled for her flashlight. The beam flickered before dying completely, leaving her in an oppressive blackness. Maya. The voice was soft but clear, echoing in the stillness. Help me. The shadows shifted around her, and for a moment, she felt the presence of something ethereal standing just behind her. She spun around, her heart pounding, but there was nothing there. The child's voice resonated in her mind, pulling her deeper into the mystery. Please, it pleaded, a cry for help that reverberated within her. With newfound determination, Maya searched her pockets for her phone, the only source of light she had left. The screen illuminated the attic just enough to see the outline of the trunk. She knew she had to keep looking, to find a way to unravel the mystery that connected her to the child in the mirror. What do you want from me? Maya shouted into the darkness, feeling both vulnerable and empowered. I'll help you. Just show me how. As if in response, a gust of wind blew through the attic, knocking over boxes and sending dust swirling around her. In the chaos, she caught a glimpse of something shimmering in the corner of her eye. It was the mirror, still resting in the trunk, reflecting the darkness around it. Maya felt drawn to it again, an irresistible force urging her closer. With trembling hands, she picked it up and turned it toward herself. This time, instead of her reflection, she saw the child's face staring back at her, eyes wide with a mix of fear and longing. Help me, Maya, the voice echoed louder now, filled with urgency. Maya's heart raced, and she felt an overwhelming wave of empathy wash over her. She wasn't just looking at a reflection. She was looking at someone who had been trapped, someone who needed her help. I will find a way, she whispered, the words escaping her lips like a promise. The connection between them felt stronger now, an understanding that transcended time and space. In that moment, she knew her journey had only just begun. The secrets of the mirror, the shadows, and the cries for help all intertwined with her family's legacy. She had to uncover the truth to free the child, and perhaps, in doing so, free herself from the darkness that had lingered over her family for generations. Maya's heart raced as the child's pleading gaze lingered in the mirror. I will help you, she repeated, more resolutely this time. But what did that even mean? She had no idea what it would take to free the child trapped within the glass. Taking a deep breath, she placed the mirror on the attic floor and focused on the swirling shadows that danced around her. Each flicker of movement felt like a reminder that time was slipping away. The voice of the child was becoming increasingly desperate, urging her to take action. In a sudden burst of inspiration, Maya recalled the journal. Her grandmother had written about confronting the past and finding a way to heal the wounds that had festered for so long. Maya needed to understand what had happened. why the child was trapped in the mirror, and how she could break the cycle of sorrow that seemed to grip her family. She rummaged through the trunk again, searching for the journal. Finally, she found it beneath a stack of photographs. As she flipped through its pages, she looked for any clues that might help her understand the connection between her family and the mysterious child. "Every story has a beginning," she read aloud, her voice steadying her nerves. "And sometimes the echoes of the past linger longer than we realize. The mirror reflects not only our images but the souls of those lost in time." Maya's breath caught as she processed the weight of her grandmother's words. This was more than just a physical reflection. The mirror could hold the key to understanding the past. But how could she access those echoes and set the child free? The air in the attic grew colder, the shadows swirling more vigorously around her. It was as if the very walls were alive, urging her to hurry. Maya closed her eyes, trying to center herself amid the growing chaos. The whispers filled her mind, a cacophony of voices, some familiar, others distant, each calling out to her, begging her to listen. "Child, help us," one voice cried. "We're trapped. Release us," another echoed, sending shivers down her spine. Maya opened her eyes, filled with determination. "I'm here," she shouted into the darkness, her voice ringing through the attic. "I'll help you all. Just guide me." Suddenly, the air shifted, and the whispers quieted, replaced by an eerie stillness. In that silence, the child's face reappeared in the mirror, eyes wide and filled with urgency. "Find the key," the child said, her voice soft yet commanding. "It's hidden where the light cannot reach." Maya's pulse quickened. A key? Where could it possibly be? "What light?" she asked, desperately searching the room for answers. The child's image flickered, and Maya felt a surge of energy that pulled her toward a darkened corner of the attic. It was a spot she hadn't noticed before, hidden behind a large wooden beam, shrouded in shadows. She moved toward it, her heart racing, and knelt down. As she brushed away the dust, she spotted a small box, its surface covered in cobwebs. With trembling fingers, she opened it to find a key, intricately designed and glinting faintly in the dim light. It felt heavy and significant in her palm, and she sensed that it held the power to unlock something long forgotten. "I have it," she exclaimed, turning back to the mirror. The child's image smiled faintly, a glimmer of hope shining through her sorrowful expression. "Now, the mirror," the child urged, her voice growing stronger. "You must place the key in the lock. Only then can I be free." Maya approached the mirror, heart pounding. She could feel the energy in the room shifting, building to a palpable intensity. The keyhole glinted, almost calling out to her. Taking a deep breath, she inserted the key and turned it. The mirror trembled, ripples spreading across its surface as if responding to the key. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a blinding light burst forth, illuminating the attic and casting away the shadows that had haunted her. Maya shielded her eyes, and when she opened them, she saw the child standing before her, translucent yet radiant, a glow emanating from her figure. "Thank you," the child whispered, her voice echoing through the room. "Now you can know the truth." As the child began to speak, the light around them deepened, revealing visions of the past. Images flashed before Maya's eyes, memories of laughter, of love, but also of pain and fear. She saw her grandmother as a young girl, holding the very same mirror, whispering to the child, trying to soothe her fears. But the child's story was one of tragedy. She had been trapped within the mirror for decades, her presence fading as her family's history became shrouded in darkness. Maya could see the events that led to her confinement: betrayal, loss, and the desperate need to keep the truth hidden. Maya felt tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know." "You can help us," the child said, her voice stronger now. "Tell my story. Help others remember us." With a final smile, the child began to dissolve into the light, and Maya felt an overwhelming sense of peace wash over her. The echoes of the past began to quiet, leaving behind a serene silence. The mirror remained before her, but now it reflected only her own image. Maya understood that she had a mission, one that would intertwine her fate with the stories of those who had come before her. As she wiped her tears, she resolved to honor the memory of the child and all those lost to the shadows of their family history. She would tell their story, ensuring that their cries for help would never be forgotten again. Maya stood in the attic, her heart still racing from the encounter with the child. The weight of her family's hidden history pressed upon her, but now it felt lighter, as if a burden had been lifted. She could still feel the warmth of the child's presence, a gentle reminder that she was not alone in this journey. She carefully placed the mirror back in the trunk, ensuring it was protected but never forgotten. The key rested in her pocket, a token of her promise to remember. It was time to explore the truth of her family's past, to unravel the secrets that had haunted them for generations. The following days were a blur as Maya immersed herself in research. She spent hours at the local library, combing through old newspapers and historical records, seeking any mention of the family or the child trapped within the mirror. Each piece of information brought her closer to understanding the tragedy that had befallen them. She discovered that her great-grandmother, Agnes, had lived in a time of hardship. A widow raising 2 young children, she had sought solace in the supernatural, believing that a spirit in the mirror could protect her family. But as the years passed, the spirit's influence grew darker, and Agnes became consumed by her fears, leading to her eventual disappearance under mysterious circumstances. Maya's heart sank as she read about Agnes's struggles. The child's story was a part of her own family's fabric, woven into the very essence of her identity. It was clear that the mirror had been both a refuge and a prison, a place of hope that had turned into a source of despair. Determined to bring closure to the tragic tale, Maya sought out the local historian, Mrs. Harper, who was known for her extensive knowledge of the town's past. As she entered the small, cluttered office filled with dusty books and artifacts, Maya felt a sense of purpose wash over her. "Can I help you?" Mrs. Harper asked, peering over her glasses, curiosity sparkling in her eyes. "I'm looking for information about my great-grandmother, Agnes, and the mirror she owned," Maya explained, her voice steady. "I believe it holds the key to a family mystery." Mrs. Harper's expression changed, a flicker of recognition crossing her face. "Ah, the mirror. It's said to have a dark history. Many believed it to be a portal of sorts, an object of both protection and peril." Maya nodded, feeling a chill run down her spine. "I want to know more. I need to understand what happened to Agnes and the child." As Mrs. Harper rummaged through her files, she shared stories of Agnes's life, painting a vivid picture of a woman who had once been vibrant and full of life. After her disappearance, the family was left shattered. No one knew what had happened to her, but there were whispers that she had become lost within her own fears. Maya listened intently, heart heavy with the realization that her great-grandmother's struggles mirrored her own. "And the child," she pressed. "What became of her?" "The child was never identified," Mrs. Harper said, her tone solemn. "Some say she became a part of the mirror's legend, a spirit that haunted the attic. Others believe she was a victim of Agnes's despair, a sacrifice to keep the darkness at bay." Maya felt a knot form in her stomach. The weight of her family's history pressed heavily upon her. "What can I do?" she asked, desperation creeping into her voice. Mrs. Harper looked at her thoughtfully. "You have already begun by seeking the truth. Sometimes, understanding is the first step to healing. If you wish to honor your family's legacy, perhaps you should consider holding a gathering, inviting family and friends to share memories and stories. It might help bring closure." Maya pondered this suggestion. A gathering could be the key to bridging the gap between the past and the present, allowing her to share the child's story and Agnes's struggles. She could create a space where her family's history could be acknowledged, not hidden away in the shadows. With newfound resolve, she left Mrs. Harper's office, the historian's words echoing in her mind. As she prepared for the gathering, Maya reached out to family members she hadn't spoken to in years, sharing her findings and inviting them to join her in remembering those lost to the past. On the day of the gathering, the sun shone brightly, illuminating the living room where family photos adorned the walls. Friends and relatives began to filter in, their faces a mix of curiosity and concern. Maya welcomed them, feeling a sense of solidarity build among them. As they settled into their seats, Maya felt a surge of emotion. She had prepared a speech, but she knew she needed to speak from her heart. "Thank you all for being here today," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "I want to share a story that has been hidden for too long. The story of my great-grandmother, Agnes, and the child trapped in the mirror." She recounted the tale, her words flowing like a river of truth, as she shared her findings and the encounters she had experienced. The room grew still as her family listened, the weight of their shared history settling among them. As she spoke, she noticed a few family members exchanging glances, recognition dawning in their eyes. Memories began to surface, old stories resurfacing like ghosts from the past. One by one, her relatives shared their own memories of Agnes, how she had been a loving mother, a caring sister, and a woman who had faced unimaginable challenges. "I remember a time when she would tell us tales of the mirror," her Aunt Clara said, her voice thick with emotion. "She believed it could protect us, that it held the spirits of our ancestors." Maya felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. This gathering was more than just a remembrance. It was a reunion of spirits, a reclaiming of their family's legacy. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow through the windows, Maya stood before her family, feeling a sense of closure wash over her. "Thank you for sharing your stories," she said softly. "Together, we can remember Agnes and the child, honoring their memory and ensuring they are never forgotten again." With that promise, Maya felt the shadows that had loomed over her family begin to recede, replaced by a newfound light, a light that symbolized healing and hope for the future. Don't forget to subscribe in the channel and like the video for more contents. As the first light of dawn filtered through the trees, Alex stood before the old Victorian house that had been in his family for generations. He had always been intrigued by its tales of hidden rooms and forgotten passages, but today marked the first time he would explore it himself. The air was crisp, and a sense of adventure stirred within him as he stepped onto the creaky porch. Pushing open the heavy front door, Alex was greeted by a wave of stale air, thick with dust and memories. The interior was a mix of faded elegance and neglect. Shadows danced on the walls, telling stories of the family gatherings and whispered secrets that had once filled the rooms. He took a moment to absorb it all, letting the weight of history settle around him. His curiosity drew him toward the staircase. Each step felt like a journey through time, creaking under his weight as he ascended. The second floor was adorned with old portraits, the eyes of his ancestors seeming to follow him as he passed. He could almost hear their murmurs, urging him to dig deeper into the family's past. As he moved through the bedrooms, Alex's heart raced with anticipation. He had heard tales of a hidden passage behind the old oak wardrobe in the master bedroom, a secret kept for decades. He approached the wardrobe, its surface worn and scratched, and pushed it aside. To his surprise, a section of the wall stood out, a faint outline of a doorframe hidden beneath layers of dust. His pulse quickened at the thought of finally uncovering the mystery that had long captivated his imagination. Taking a deep breath, he pressed against the wall, feeling the coolness beneath his palm. With a bit of force, the hidden door creaked open, revealing a narrow passageway that seemed to stretch into darkness. The air that seeped out was cool and musty, sending a shiver down his spine. With a sense of determination, Alex switched on his phone's flashlight and stepped into the passage. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating the damp stone walls that flanked him. Old photographs adorned the walls, their edges yellowed and faded. As he studied them closely, he recognized some of his family members. But the deeper he ventured, the more unsettling the images became. Pictures filled with sorrow, anguish, and figures lurking in the shadows. A sense of dread washed over him, but Alex pushed forward, his curiosity outweighing his fear. At the end of the passage, he discovered a small room, its air thick with secrets. In the corner, a dusty trunk sat, its lock rusted but still intact. He approached it, his heart racing with excitement and trepidation. With a piece of metal he found nearby, he jimmied the lock until it clicked open. The trunk creaked as he lifted the lid, revealing a collection of old letters, photographs, and a diary belonging to his great-aunt, whom he had only heard about in family stories. As he flipped through the diary's yellowed pages, a chill swept through the room. His gray-tant's words detailed a life filled with heartache and a darkness that had seemingly followed the family. The final entry sent a shiver through him. The shadows in the walls have grown restless. I fear they know my secrets. If anyone finds this, be warned. The darkness has a hunger that cannot be sated. Alex's breath caught in his throat. The weight of his family's history pressed upon him, and he understood that he had stumbled upon something far more significant than he had anticipated. This was not merely a hidden passage. It was a gateway to the haunting secrets of his lineage. Stepping back into the hallway, the whispers of the past echoed in his mind. He felt a profound sense of purpose. He was determined to uncover the truth about the darkness that had haunted his family for generations. As he stood in the fading light of the passage, Alex knew that this journey would lead him deeper into the shadows than he had ever imagined. The adventure was only beginning, and he was ready to face whatever darkness awaited him. The air in the passageway felt heavier now, as if it were charged with an energy that both beckoned and warned him. Alex took a moment to collect himself, clutching the diary tightly against his chest. The revelations within those pages were unsettling, but they also ignited a fire within him, a desire to uncover the truth about his family's hidden past. Stepping back into the main house, he could still hear the whispers echoing in his mind. Each room felt different now, as if the walls themselves held secrets begging to be revealed. With a newfound determination, he decided to delve deeper into the house, starting with the attic. The attic door was at the end of the hall, just beyond the bathroom. He had always been curious about what lay up there, but the stories of spiders and dust had kept him away. Now, he felt an urgent need to explore. He climbed the narrow staircase, the wood groaning under his weight, and pushed open the creaky door. Inside, the attic was a treasure trove of forgotten memories. Old trunks, tattered furniture, and stacks of dusty books lined the walls. Sunlight streamed in through a small window, illuminating motes of dust that danced in the air. Alex's heart raced as he scanned the room, searching for anything that might connect to the diary he had just discovered. His eyes landed on a large, ornate mirror covered in a thick layer of dust. It stood tall and grand, an oddity among the other relics. He approached it cautiously, wiping away the dust with his sleeve. As the reflection cleared, he noticed something peculiar. The glass didn't simply reflect the attic. Instead, it appeared to flicker, revealing a glimpse of another world behind him, one that was dark and distorted, filled with shadowy figures lurking just out of sight. He blinked and rubbed his eyes, convinced he was seeing things. But when he looked again, the mirror showed only his reflection, albeit with an unsettling aura that felt foreign. Shaking off the strange sensation, he turned his attention back to the room. While rummaging through a pile of old clothes, something caught his eye, a small, leather-bound book tucked away in a corner. He pulled it out and brushed off the dust, revealing its faded cover. As he opened it, he realized it was another diary, but this one seemed much older. Flipping through the pages, he recognized the handwriting immediately. It belonged to his great-great-grandfather, a man whose life had been steeped in mystery and tragedy. The entries spoke of family, struggles, and the deep-seated fears that plagued their lineage. One passage stood out. The walls listen, and they remember. I hear the cries of those who have come before me, lost in the shadows. They warn me of a curse that lingers within these walls. I must find a way to break it before it claims me too. Alex felt a chill run down his spine. A curse? Was that what his great-aunt had been warning about? He glanced back at the mirror, now feeling a palpable tension in the air. The shadows seemed to shift and pulse, as if aware of his presence. As he continued to read, he learned about a family secret, one that had caused a rift between generations. It involved a tragic event that had occurred decades ago, one that had left a mark on their family that was never spoken of. The more he uncovered, the more the pieces began to fit together, creating a picture of a family haunted not just by ghosts, but by the weight of their own actions. Feeling overwhelmed, Alex closed the diary and took a step back. He needed to process everything he had discovered. The attic felt suffocating, as if it were closing in on him. He decided to take a break and gather his thoughts in the garden outside. The sunlight was warm on his skin as he stepped into the overgrown yard. Nature had taken over the once beautiful garden, but it still held a certain charm. He could almost imagine the laughter of children playing there, their echoes long gone. As he wandered among the weeds and wildflowers, he contemplated his next move. The stories he had unearthed weighed heavily on him, but he knew he had to dig deeper. Something compelled him to return to the hidden passage. Perhaps there were more secrets waiting to be found. With a newfound resolve, Alex headed back inside, determined to face the darkness that had haunted his family for generations. He knew he was stepping into unknown territory, but he couldn't ignore the pull of the past any longer. As he reached the hidden door once again, the hairs on the back of his neck stood on end. There was an undeniable presence lurking within, and he felt the walls whispering his name. He pushed the door open, the darkness welcoming him like an old friend. With his flashlight in hand, he ventured deeper into the passage, ready to uncover whatever mysteries lay ahead. The passage was narrow, almost claustrophobic, with the walls feeling like they were closing in around him. The flashlight beam cut through the darkness, illuminating the damp stone walls that appeared to sweat with age. Alex pressed forward, his heart racing with a mix of dread and excitement. Every step echoed, amplifying the silence that enveloped him. The air grew cooler, and he could hear a faint sound, like a whisper carried on the wind. It sent shivers down his spine, but he felt compelled to follow it. Was it a trick of his mind, or did the walls truly murmur secrets long forgotten? He continued deeper into the passage, determined to uncover the truth. As he walked, he stumbled upon a series of symbols carved into the walls. They were intricate and strange, swirling patterns that seemed to pulse with an ancient energy. Kneeling down, Alex traced his fingers over the markings, feeling an odd vibration beneath his touch. It was as if the stone itself recognized his presence and responded to his curiosity. His thoughts drifted to the diary, particularly the part about a family curse. Could these symbols be connected? He recalled a mention of rituals and warnings in the entries. The deeper he delved into his family's history, the more he felt a sense of foreboding. What if this hidden passage was more than just a forgotten part of the house? What if it was a gateway to something far darker? He pushed aside his fears and continued exploring, moving cautiously forward. The corridor twisted and turned, revealing small alcoves along the way, each filled with dust-covered relics. One alcove, in particular, caught his attention. It housed an old wooden chest, the kind you might expect to find in a pirate's lair, adorned with tarnished brass fittings. Alex's heart raced as he knelt before the chest, gingerly lifting the lid. It creaked ominously, echoing through the stillness. Inside, he found a collection of objects: a rusted compass, a broken pocket watch, and a small, delicate locket. Each item seemed to pulse with history, begging to be examined. He picked up the locket, feeling its weight in his palm. The surface was engraved with floral designs, and he opened it slowly. Inside were two photographs, one of a woman with bright, kind eyes and another of a young boy who resembled Alex. He was taken aback, a sense of familiarity washing over him. "Who are you?" he murmured to himself, tracing the outline of the boy's face. The more he stared, the more he felt a strange connection to the image. Suddenly, the whispering grew louder, swirling around him like a tempest, and he realized he needed to leave the alcove. Closing the locket carefully, he returned it to the chest and moved on, the echoes of the passageway pulling him further into its depths. The temperature dropped noticeably, and he noticed his breath forming small clouds in the chilly air. An eerie feeling settled in the pit of his stomach as he ventured deeper, knowing that the deeper he went, the more he risked disturbing whatever presence lurked in the shadows. Suddenly, he heard a soft thud behind him. Whipping around, he aimed his flashlight in that direction, but saw nothing, just the shadows playing tricks on his mind. Shaking his head to clear his thoughts, he pressed onward, now more alert and cautious. The corridor opened up into a larger chamber, and as he stepped inside, the beam of his flashlight flickered. The light danced across the walls, revealing more strange symbols, but this time they appeared to form a circle, a sort of ritualistic pattern. In the center of the chamber stood an altar, rough-hewn and imposing, draped with a faded cloth that bore signs of wear and age. Feeling a magnetic pull, Alex approached the altar. As he drew closer, he noticed small offerings scattered around it. Dried flowers, bits of fabric, and what looked like small tokens. A mix of trinkets that seemed to carry weighty significance. It was a place of reverence, perhaps a site for the rituals his great-great-grandfather had mentioned. His fingers grazed the surface of the altar, and in that instant, the air around him shifted. The whispers crescendoed into a cacophony of voices, overlapping and intertwining, creating an unsettling symphony that filled the chamber. Alex stumbled back, heart racing, overwhelmed by the sensation that he was not alone. He turned to flee, but was halted by the flickering of his flashlight once again. This time, the beam illuminated a figure in the corner of the room. It was a shadow, dark and indistinct, yet it seemed to pulsate with an aura of anger and sorrow. "Who are you?" Alex demanded, trying to steady his trembling voice. The figure didn't move, but seemed to watch him with a piercing gaze. "Leave this place," it whispered, the voice barely more than a breath. "You do not belong here." Fear coursed through him, but something deep within urged him to stay, to confront whatever it was that haunted this space. "I need to know the truth," he replied, his voice gaining strength. "I need to understand my family's past." The figure remained silent for a moment, and then it slowly raised its hand, pointing toward the altar. "The truth is buried beneath the pain of the past. To understand, you must face what was lost." With that, the figure dissipated into the shadows, leaving Alex alone once more. His heart pounded in his chest as he processed the encounter. What had he just witnessed? Feeling a sense of urgency, he returned to the altar, determined to uncover the hidden truths that lay beneath the surface. The locket, the symbols, the voice, all were pieces of a puzzle he needed to complete. As he knelt before the altar, he felt an overwhelming wave of emotion wash over him. It was as if the walls themselves were pleading for him to listen, to understand the sacrifices made and the secrets kept. With renewed determination, Alex set to work, determined to dig deeper and uncover the past that had long been buried in silence. Alex focused intently on the altar, its surface weathered yet sturdy. The symbols carved into the stone seemed to pulse under the light of his flashlight, almost alive with energy. As he examined them closely, he realized they formed a pattern, each marking linked to another, creating a tapestry of his family's history that had long been forgotten. He carefully brushed aside the bits of fabric and dried flowers that littered the altar, revealing a hidden compartment at the back. It was slightly ajar, as if it had been disturbed recently. His heart raced as he reached for it, lifting the cover to reveal a stack of aged papers, their edges yellowed with time. With trembling fingers, he pulled out the top sheet and held it up to the light. It was a letter, beautifully penned in cursive, but the words felt heavy with sorrow. The letter was addressed to his great-great-grandfather, detailing the grief of a family torn apart by tragedy. "My dearest Harold," it began, the ink slightly smudged. "I write to you with a heart full of sorrow. The loss of our sweet Emily has left an ache that I fear will never fade. I have hidden the truth of her passing from the children, hoping to shield them from the darkness that now lingers over our family." Alex's eyes widened as he read on. Emily was a name he had seen in his family tree, but had never given much thought. Who was she? What had happened to her? He flipped through the remaining pages, each revealing fragments of a heart-wrenching story of loss, despair, and unfulfilled promises. As he pieced together the narrative, Alex learned that Emily had been a bright, spirited child who had vanished one fateful night, leaving the family in disarray. Rumors of a curse began to swirl, darkening their lineage with fear. The family had buried their grief beneath layers of denial, and the truth had become a whispered legend, forgotten over time. The final page of the letter detailed a secret, a ritual meant to bring closure and release the family from the grief that had shackled them. Alex's breath quickened as he read the instructions, realizing that he might have the power to help his family break free from the past. But a chilling realization crept in. Was this what the shadow meant, he wondered? Was I meant to perform this ritual? Suddenly, the air around him shifted, and the whispers returned, echoing louder than before. They were no longer just indistinct murmurs. They formed words, urgent and pleading. "Release us," they cried, the voices rising in desperation. You hold the key. Alex felt a surge of resolve. He had stumbled upon something profound, a chance to give his family the peace they had been denied for generations. With renewed purpose, he decided to gather the items necessary for the ritual mentioned in the letter: a candle, salt, and a token of remembrance. Determined to find a way to connect with Emily's spirit and give her the closure she deserved, he set about searching the chamber for the items. His heart raced as he rummaged through the offerings left on the altar. There had to be something here that could serve as a token, something that once belonged to her. After a few moments of searching, Alex discovered a small, ornate box hidden beneath a pile of dried flowers. The box was intricately carved with floral designs, reminiscent of the locket he had found earlier. With trembling hands, he opened it to reveal a delicate silver bracelet adorned with small charms. Could this have been hers? He whispered, recognizing the familiar patterns etched into the charms. Each represented a moment in time: a flower, a star, a small heart. It felt like a connection to the past, as if Emily had left a piece of herself behind. With the bracelet cradled in his hands, Alex knew he had found the perfect token for the ritual. He gathered the other items he needed from the altar and prepared to conduct the ceremony right there in the hidden chamber. He could feel the weight of his family's history pressing down on him, urging him to act. He lit the candle, its flickering flame casting eerie shadows that danced across the walls. The whispers grew more intense, swirling around him like a tempest of sorrow and hope. Alex placed the salt in a circle around the candle and held the bracelet close to his heart. "Emily," he began, his voice steady despite the tumultuous emotions swirling within him. "I am your descendant, Alex. I'm here to honor your memory and bring you the peace you've longed for." As he spoke, the room filled with a sudden chill, and the shadows seemed to shift. He could feel a presence, a weight in the air that grew heavier with every word. The whispers faded, replaced by an eerie silence. "I acknowledge the pain you endured," he continued, his voice echoing off the walls. "I will not allow your story to be forgotten. You deserve to be remembered, to be free from the burden of grief that has haunted our family for so long." He placed the bracelet on the altar and closed his eyes, focusing on the warmth of the candle and the intent behind his words. "I call upon you, Emily. If you can hear me, please come forward. Let us find closure together." The candle flickered violently, and the shadows around him twisted into forms that felt almost tangible. A soft glow emanated from the bracelet, illuminating the room with an ethereal light. The whispers returned, softer now, almost melodic. "I'm here," a gentle voice echoed, wrapping around him like a warm embrace. Alex's heart raced as he opened his eyes, and there she was, an ethereal figure, shimmering and translucent. Emily stood before him, a soft smile gracing her features, her eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice a gentle breeze. "Thank you for remembering me." With those words, Alex felt a wave of relief wash over him. He had brought Emily's spirit back from the shadows, and now they could finally release the pain that had held their family captive for generations. As the ethereal glow surrounding Emily flickered like candlelight, Alex felt a deep connection that transcended time. Her presence was both comforting and haunting, a reminder of the family legacy he had inherited. The shadows around them danced, casting intricate patterns on the walls, as if the very room was alive with energy. "Emily," Alex breathed, his voice trembling with emotion. "I've read your story. I know what happened to you. You deserved better than to be forgotten." The translucent figure of Emily smiled softly, her features reflecting a lifetime of sorrow and unfulfilled dreams. "It was never your fault, Alex. Our family has carried the weight of my disappearance for far too long. It's time to let it go." Alex's heart ached at her words. He could see the anguish in her eyes, a window into the pain that had echoed through the generations. "But how do I help you? How do we break this cycle of grief?" Emily extended her hand, the faint light intensifying as she did. "You've already taken the first step by remembering me. Now we need to release the past. You must perform the ritual to free our family from the shackles of sorrow." With a determined nod, Alex steadied himself. He had read the instructions carefully, but there was a palpable fear of the unknown that gripped him. "What do I need to do?" "Begin by speaking my name," Emily instructed, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. "Then, light the candle and place the bracelet in the circle of salt. As you do, recall the happiest moments of your life and allow them to fill the space with light and love." The room grew colder, the shadows thickening as if holding their breath, waiting for the moment to unfold. Alex took a deep breath, letting the warmth of the candlelight envelop him. "Emily," he said firmly, "I call upon your spirit to join me in this sacred space. We honor your memory and seek to release the pain that binds our family." As the last word escaped his lips, the candle flickered violently, and a gust of wind rushed through the chamber, extinguishing the flame. For a moment, panic gripped him, but Emily's gentle presence soothed his fears. "Do not be afraid," she whispered. "We are close. Remember the love, Alex. Focus on the joy, the laughter, the light that we once shared." He closed his eyes, conjuring memories from his childhood. The warmth of family gatherings, the laughter of shared stories, the feeling of safety and love. Each image flooded his mind, painting a tapestry of happiness that had been obscured by sorrow for far too long. In that moment of reflection, he felt the darkness begin to lift, the oppressive weight of grief slowly easing from the room. With a newfound determination, Alex found another candle and lit it, allowing the flame to merge with the essence of Emily's spirit. "Let the light of our love guide you," he spoke firmly, the words echoing off the stone walls. "Let go of the past and embrace the freedom that awaits." As he placed the bracelet in the circle of salt, a soft glow surrounded the items, illuminating the chamber with a gentle radiance. The shadows began to recede, and the whispers transformed into a harmonious melody, enveloping them in a cocoon of warmth. Emily's form shimmered, her expression shifting from sadness to peace. "Thank you, Alex. You have given me what I needed, a chance to be remembered and a path to freedom." In that instant, the room erupted in light, filling every corner with a brilliant radiance that chased away the shadows. Alex felt an overwhelming sense of release as the air grew lighter, the weight of the past lifting like a veil being drawn aside. As the light enveloped Emily, she began to fade, but not without leaving behind a soft smile and a gentle whisper. "You are never alone. I will always be with you, in the laughter and love that fills your heart." With those final words, the light burst forth, enveloping Alex in a warmth that chased away all remnants of fear. The whispers transformed into a chorus of joy, resonating within him, filling the space with an overwhelming sense of love and acceptance. In that moment, Alex knew they had broken the chains of sorrow that had bound his family for generations. Emily's spirit was free, and in turn, he felt liberated from the weight of the past. The shadows that had haunted the chamber began to dissipate, revealing the beauty of the hidden room, a place now filled with light and love. As the last echoes of the ritual faded, Alex stood in silence, feeling the profound shift within himself. He had discovered not just a hidden passage, but a path to healing, a way to honor his family's legacy while embracing the joy of living. Don't forget to subscribe in the channel and like the video for more contents. On an unremarkable Tuesday evening, I found myself wandering through the quiet streets of my neighborhood, the golden glow of streetlights casting long shadows across the pavement. I had just finished a long day at work, my mind weighed down by deadlines and endless responsibilities. Seeking solace from the chaos of life, I decided to take a detour through the park. The autumn air was crisp, filled with the scent of fallen leaves and the distant sounds of laughter from children playing. As I strolled deeper into the park, the usual sights and sounds faded into a comforting backdrop. I was lost in thought, contemplating my life choices, when I noticed a figure sitting alone on a weathered bench beneath a large oak tree. He seemed out of place, his dark clothing contrasting sharply with the bright hues of the setting sun. Something about him drew me in. Perhaps it was the intensity of his gaze, or the air of mystery that surrounded him. Curiosity getting the better of me, I approached the bench. "Mind if I join you?" I asked, trying to mask my intrigue with casualness. He looked up, his piercing blue eyes locking onto mine. A faint smile broke through his rugged features. Not at all. It's a beautiful evening, isn't it? I took a seat beside him, feeling an inexplicable sense of ease despite the enigma he presented. It really is. I often come here to think and clear my head. What brings you to this part of the park? He hesitated for a moment, as if weighing his words carefully. Just searching for some clarity of my own. Life has a way of clouding our vision, doesn't it? His words resonated with me more than I expected. You could say that again. I feel like I'm constantly battling against the tide, trying to keep up with everything. He nodded, a knowing look crossing his face. Sometimes we need to step back and reassess. Sometimes help comes from the most unexpected places. I was intrigued by his insight, finding comfort in the shared struggle. What do you mean by help? Help can take many forms, he replied, his voice smooth and steady. It could be guidance, a fresh perspective, or even just the comfort of knowing someone understands your struggles. His words struck a chord within me, and I felt compelled to share my worries. I've been feeling lost lately. Between work, family expectations, and personal goals, it's overwhelming. I don't even know where to start. The stranger leaned back, a contemplative look on his face. Maybe you don't need to start at all. Sometimes it's about taking a moment to breathe and allow yourself to feel. What do you truly want? I paused, taken aback by the question. What did I truly want? The answer eluded me, buried beneath layers of obligation and expectation. I want to feel fulfilled, to pursue my passions without fear of judgment. A smile broke across his face, illuminating his features. Then pursue them. The only limits are the ones we impose on ourselves. His confidence ignited something within me, a flicker of hope. But before I could respond, the atmosphere around us shifted. The air grew heavier, and the evening sky darkened with unexpected clouds. I looked around, noticing how the park had suddenly become eerily quiet. Maybe we should head back, I suggested, glancing at the unsettling change in weather. Not yet, he said, his tone unwavering. There's something you need to see. Intrigued but hesitant, I followed his gaze as he pointed towards a narrow path that snaked through the trees. It was a route I had never noticed before, hidden behind a curtain of branches and shadows. What's down that way? I asked, a mix of curiosity and trepidation swirling within me. An opportunity for discovery, he replied cryptically. Trust me. Despite the unease settling in my stomach, something urged me to follow. As we walked, the crunch of leaves beneath our feet was the only sound accompanying us. The atmosphere shifted, the oppressive weight of the world slowly lifting as we ventured deeper into the woods. After a short walk, we arrived at a clearing bathed in moonlight. At its center stood an ancient stone well, its structure worn but sturdy. The surface shimmered with an otherworldly glow, reflecting the light of the moon in a way that seemed almost magical. This is the place, the stranger said, his voice low and reverent. Look inside. I leaned over the well, peering into the depths. The water was clear, revealing a vibrant world beneath the surface. I could see images flashing, snippets of memories, moments of joy, and possibilities for the future swirling like a kaleidoscope. What is this? I whispered, overwhelmed by the beauty and chaos of what lay below. It's a reflection of your potential, he replied, stepping closer. What you can achieve if you choose to embrace it. This is your chance to let go of fear and reach for what you truly desire. His words resonated within me, awakening a sense of courage I hadn't felt in years. I took a deep breath, allowing the cool night air to fill my lungs, and I realized that this was a pivotal moment, a chance to redefine my path. As I stepped back from the well, I turned to thank the stranger, but he was gone, as if he had melted into the shadows of the night. Confused yet invigorated, I felt an unexplainable sense of clarity wash over me. Standing alone in the clearing, I understood that I had been given a gift, an opportunity to confront my fears and take control of my destiny. The mysterious stranger had opened my eyes to the possibilities that lay ahead, and as I walked back through the park, I felt a newfound determination coursing through my veins. I would embrace my passions, pursue my dreams, and break free from the limitations that had held me captive for far too long. The next morning dawned with a clarity that felt almost surreal. The sun filtered through my window, bathing my room in a warm glow that invigorated my spirit. I couldn't shake the memory of the stranger and the well, nor could I forget the words he had shared. That encounter had ignited something within me, a spark of hope that I hadn't realized I was missing. I brewed a cup of coffee, the rich aroma filling my apartment as I sat at the kitchen table, my thoughts racing. I found myself reflecting on what I wanted to pursue. My mind wandered to my love for painting, a passion I had tucked away in the chaos of adulthood. I had always dreamed of showcasing my work, but fear had often held me back. Today, however, felt different. The thought of picking up my brushes again sent a thrill through me. After breakfast, I decided to take a trip to an art supply store. As I strolled through the aisles, my fingers brushed over canvases and tubes of paint, igniting a long-buried excitement. I gathered my supplies, my heart racing at the prospect of creating something new. Yet, even as I left the store, the sense of urgency from the night before clung to me. As I walked home, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the stranger's visit than mere encouragement. I needed to unravel the mystery surrounding him. Who was he? How did he know what I needed at that moment? Determined to uncover the truth, I recalled the path we had taken in the park and decided to return. The park felt different in the daylight, more vibrant yet somehow still steeped in an aura of mystery. I made my way to the clearing, anticipation thrumming in my veins. When I arrived at the well, my heart raced. It stood unchanged, its ancient stones glistening in the sunlight. I leaned over the edge, peering into the water once more. This time, the images were less chaotic, revealing scenes of my life. Family gatherings, joyful moments, but also shadows of doubt and fear. As I stared, I noticed something different, a faint shimmer at the bottom of the well, almost like a reflection of a figure. "Hello," I called out tentatively, half expecting an answer. The surface rippled, and for a moment, the reflection shifted, revealing the stranger's face. He was smiling, but his eyes held a depth of knowing that sent a chill down my spine. "You came back," he said, his voice echoing softly from the well. "I had to find you. What are you? Who are you?" I asked, my curiosity overcoming my hesitation. "I am a guide of sorts," he replied, his voice steady and reassuring. "I exist in the spaces between choices, the moments when you seek clarity. You've taken the first step toward embracing your path, but your journey is just beginning." "What do you mean?" I pressed, wanting to understand the significance of our connection. "Your fears have held you captive for too long. The well shows you possibilities, but it's up to you to decide which path to take. I'm here to help you navigate those choices." "But how? What do I need to do?" "Create," he urged, his tone filled with conviction. "Let your art speak your truth. But beware, every choice has consequences. The world may not always welcome your light." His words hung in the air like an unspoken warning, and I felt a wave of uncertainty wash over me. But the clarity he had given me the night before surged back, fueling my resolve. "I'll do it. I'll embrace my art," I declared, my voice stronger than I felt. "Good," he said, his expression shifting to one of encouragement. "But remember, as you pursue your passion, be mindful of the shadows that follow. They may seek to distract you from your path." With those final words, the water began to ripple violently, obscuring his image. I stepped back, bewildered, as the well returned to its calm state. "What do you mean by shadows?" I shook my head, dispelling the thought, and decided to focus on the positives. With a renewed sense of purpose, I left the park and headed home. I set up my easel in my small studio space, surrounded by sunlight pouring through the windows. I opened the tubes of paint, letting their vibrant colors inspire me. For hours, I lost myself in the rhythm of creation, each brushstroke a cathartic release. But as I painted, I couldn't shake the feeling that something lurked just beyond my consciousness. Each time I glanced toward the window, I felt as if eyes were watching me, though no one was there. I dismissed it as a figment of my imagination, a remnant of my encounter with the mysterious stranger. That night, as I prepared for bed, I glanced at my unfinished painting. It felt like a piece of my soul laid bare, yet something was still missing. The unease from earlier settled back in as I crawled under the covers, and I tried to push aside my worries and fears. As sleep began to take hold, I was jolted awake by the sound of a soft whisper. Create, don't forget. Heart pounding, I sat up and looked around my dark room. Who's there? I called out, but there was only silence. The weight of unease pressed down on me, and I couldn't shake the sensation that I wasn't alone. Would the stranger return? What shadows were waiting for me? The whisper lingered in my mind, a haunting echo that refused to fade. I sat up in bed, my heart racing as I strained to listen for any sound that might confirm I was truly alone. The darkness felt oppressive, as if it was closing in around me. I glanced at the clock, 2:47 a.m. The hour felt cursed, a time when shadows danced in corners and nightmares thrived. Determined to shake off the remnants of fear, I got out of bed and made my way to the kitchen. I needed something to ground me, water, maybe some tea. The soft hum of the refrigerator was the only sound accompanying me, and as I poured a glass of water, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the dark window. For a fleeting moment, I thought I saw a figure standing behind me, but when I turned, there was nothing there, just the empty apartment and my racing heart. I took a deep breath and leaned against the cool countertop. The stranger's words replayed in my mind. Beware of the shadows that follow. Was I imagining things? Or was there something more lurking beneath the surface of my life? I tried to push the thought aside and focus on the positives. The painting I had started, the newfound inspiration. After finishing my drink, I returned to my studio, the dim light of my desk lamp casting long shadows against the walls. My painting awaited me, the canvas a blank slate, but the energy in the room felt charged, alive with possibility. I picked up my brush and dipped it into vibrant hues, pouring my thoughts and emotions onto the canvas. Hours melted away as I painted, lost in the rhythm of creativity. Each stroke felt cathartic, an exorcism of the fears that had haunted me for so long. But just as I was finding my flow, I felt it again, a presence at my back, a chill creeping up my spine. I turned abruptly, expecting to see the stranger standing there, but the room remained empty, save for my paint-splattered easel. My mind raced, torn between the urge to dismiss the sensations as mere paranoia and the unsettling idea that something truly was lurking in the shadows. The atmosphere thickened, almost tangible, and I decided to take a break. I stepped out onto the small balcony, hoping the fresh air would clear my head. The night was still, the city below a canvas of twinkling lights. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, trying to find peace. But the moment I opened them, my heart dropped. A shadow flickered in the corner of my vision, moving swiftly between the buildings across the street. Just a trick of the light, I muttered to myself, but the feeling of unease settled deeper within me. I leaned over the railing, straining to see more, but whatever had caught my eye was gone. Back inside, I returned to my easel, but my focus was gone. I needed answers. If the stranger was indeed a guide, I had to understand what he meant by shadows. Was I being followed? Or was it something more internal, my own fears taking shape? As I sat there, lost in thought, the dim light flickered. I glanced up, the bulb pulsing, as if it were struggling to stay lit. Suddenly, the whispers returned, faint yet distinct, swirling around me like a fog. Create, don't forget, they're watching. A shiver ran down my spine. This wasn't just about my art anymore. It was something much darker. I decided I couldn't ignore the shadows any longer. I needed to confront them head on. I grabbed my phone and decided to research the park and the well. There had to be something, stories, history, anything that could shed light on my bizarre encounter. I sat back at my desk, typing furiously, the glow of the screen illuminating my face. As I scrolled through articles, I stumbled upon an old local legend about the park. Rumors of a guardian spirit that had appeared to guide lost souls. Many believed that the well was a portal, a threshold between this world and the next. But there were darker tales too. People whispered about those who had ventured too close, never to return. The hairs on my arm stood up as I read, each word amplifying the sense of foreboding that had settled over me. I could feel the shadows closing in, the weight of the unknown pressing down. Just then, my phone buzzed with a notification, a text from an unknown number. My heart raced as I opened it, the words making my blood run cold. "I'm watching you. Don't forget what I said." The chill of fear coursed through me, the shadows I had tried to dismiss now palpable, swirling around the edges of my vision. I slammed my phone down, my mind racing. Who is this? What did they want? The stranger's warnings echoed in my head, the unease transforming into full-blown terror. I needed to find out the truth behind the shadows following me. Taking a deep breath, I decided to return to the well. I had to confront this fear head-on. The mystery of the stranger, the warnings, the text, it all pointed back to that well, and I had to understand what it wanted from me. The city buzzed around me, but I felt isolated in my own world, a mere observer as I made my way back to the park. Each step felt heavy, a mix of dread and determination coursing through me. I replayed the mysterious text in my mind, the words echoing ominously. "I'm watching you. Who could it be? And why did it feel as though I was being pulled into a game I didn't understand?" As I approached the park, the familiar sights of children playing and joggers enjoying their routines contrasted sharply with the turmoil brewing inside me. I'd come here seeking clarity, yet the shadows that had haunted me seemed to deepen, wrapping their tendrils around my heart. Reaching the entrance to the park, I paused. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows that stretched out like fingers grasping at the ground. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what lay ahead, and stepped inside. The winding path led me deeper into the park, the trees forming a dense canopy overhead. The air felt thick with anticipation, and I could hear the distant sounds of nature, a rustle of leaves, a bird call. Yet they felt muffled, as if the world around me was holding its breath. Finally, I arrived at the clearing where the well stood. It loomed before me, an ancient structure draped in vines and shadows, as if it had been forgotten by time. The whispers of the past danced around me, urging me closer. I approached the well, the chilling sensation of being watched wrapping around me tighter than ever. With each step, I felt as though I was stepping into a different realm, one that blurred the line between reality and something far more sinister. I peered into the darkness of the well, the depths seemingly endless, and the cold air wafting up sent shivers down my spine. I took a moment to gather my thoughts, contemplating my next move. Was I ready to confront whatever lay within? As I leaned closer, a gust of wind blew through the clearing, causing me to stumble back. I steadied myself and took a deep breath, focusing on the task at hand. "Hello," I called, my voice trembling slightly. "Is anyone there?" The echo of my voice faded, replaced by an eerie silence. But just as I turned to leave, I noticed something glimmering in the shadows beside the well. My heart raced as I approached it, my curiosity overcoming my fear. It was an old locket, half buried in the dirt, its metal tarnished but intricate designs still visible. I knelt down, gently pulling it free from the earth. It felt heavy in my palm, a sense of weightiness that seemed to resonate with the shadows surrounding me. I opened the locket and found a faded photograph inside, a young girl with bright eyes and an infectious smile. She looked so familiar, yet I couldn't place her. Suddenly, the hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. I felt it again, that prickling sensation of being watched. I looked around, the shadows of the trees seeming to close in on me, their branches twisting like skeletal fingers. Panic began to rise within me, the tension in the air growing thick. "Who are you?" I whispered, my voice barely audible over the rustling leaves. "What do you want from me?" Just then, a figure emerged from the trees, a tall man with disheveled hair and piercing eyes. My heart raced as he stepped closer, his expression unreadable. It was the same man from the park, the stranger who had warned me. "Leave this place," he said urgently, his voice low and strained. "You're not safe here." "Why? What do you know?" I asked, gripping the locket tightly. "What's happening?" He glanced around, his eyes darting nervously, as if expecting something to emerge from the shadows. "There are forces at play here, forces that seek to trap those who dare to uncover the truth. The well is a gateway, and it has eyes. I felt a chill run through me, the weight of his words settling heavily on my shoulders. What do you mean? What truth? The girl in that locket, he said, pointing to it. She's been searching for someone to help her. She was lost here long ago, and her spirit is tied to this place. But there's more. Something sinister lurks in the shadows, and it doesn't want you to find her. A surge of determination welled up within me, fueled by the desire to uncover the mystery that had begun to envelop my life. I can't leave her, I declared, my voice stronger than before. I need to help her. The stranger's eyes softened, but there was a flicker of worry in them. You don't understand the danger you're inviting. The shadows are relentless. They will stop at nothing to protect their secrets. As his words hung in the air, I felt an unnatural chill sweep through the clearing, almost like a warning. But I couldn't turn back now. Something deep within me was tied to this girl and her fate. I have to try, I insisted, clenching the locket in my hand. If there's even a chance I can help her, I won't abandon her. The stranger's expression hardened, a mixture of fear and respect playing across his face. Very well, but you must be careful. The shadows will watch your every move. When the time comes, remember, you are not alone. Trust your instincts. With that, he turned and disappeared back into the trees, leaving me standing by the well, the weight of the locket in my hand and the weight of fate on my shoulders. As the stranger vanished, a thick silence enveloped the clearing. I stood at the edge of the well, heart pounding and thoughts racing. I glanced at the locket, its cool metal gleaming in the fading light, as if it held the key to the secrets that lay beneath. The gravity of the moment weighed heavily on me. I felt the pull of something beyond my understanding. Taking a deep breath, I leaned over the edge of the well, peering into the inky darkness below. I'm coming, I whispered, as though declaring war on the shadows that lingered. I had to find out what had happened to the girl in the photograph. With determination fueling my actions, I grabbed a length of rope I had brought with me, a remnant of a camping trip I had forgotten about until now. I secured one end around a sturdy tree nearby and lowered myself into the well. The cold air rushed up to greet me, sending shivers down my spine as I descended further into the depths. The walls of the well were slick with moss, the sound of water dripping echoing eerily around me. I focused on each handhold, feeling a sense of adventure mixed with fear. My heart raced as I descended, the light from above fading with each passing moment. Finally, my feet touched the damp ground. I released the rope and looked around, squinting in the darkness. The air was thick and heavy, filled with a musty scent that hung in the atmosphere. I flicked on my phone's flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness like a knife. The narrow chamber was more spacious than I had expected. The walls were lined with damp earth and rough stones, and I could see remnants of old wooden beams supporting the ceiling above. The eerie silence wrapped around me, amplifying every sound I made. Taking cautious steps forward, I felt a sense of unease settle over me. The shadows seemed to shift and dance at the edge of my vision, teasing my mind with thoughts of what lay hidden in the dark corners of the chamber. As I moved deeper into the well's underground expanse, I noticed a faint glow in the distance, a flickering light that drew me like a moth to a flame. Curiosity piqued. I followed the light, my heart pounding louder with each step. As I approached, the glow intensified, revealing a small alcove where a single candle flickered on a makeshift altar. Surrounding the candle were scattered trinkets, old toys, a faded doll, and small notes, each one scribbled with desperate pleas for help. I picked up a note, its edges worn and crumpled. I am lost. I need to be found. Help me. My stomach knotted as I realized these were the cries of a forgotten child, perhaps the very same girl from the locket. A chill ran through me, the air thickening as if it could sense my connection to the child's plight. Then, a noise broke through the silence. A soft whimper echoed from somewhere deeper within the well. My heart leapt in my chest. Was it her? Was it the girl in the photograph? I had to find out. I followed the sound, moving cautiously through the dark passageways, the flickering candlelight fading behind me. Each step felt heavier as dread began to seep into my bones. The deeper I went, the more palpable the darkness became, pressing against me as if trying to draw me back. Finally, I reached a larger chamber, dimly lit by glowing crystals embedded in the walls. The walls were damp and adorned with strange markings, symbols that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. In the center of the room, I saw her. The girl from the locket stood there, her form shimmering as if she were made of light and shadow. Her face was pale, and her expression was one of sorrow, her eyes wide with an unspoken plea. "Please," she whispered, her voice echoing through the chamber. "You have to help me." I stepped closer, my heart aching at the sight of her. "What happened to you? Why are you here?" "I was trapped here long ago," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I reached out for help, but the shadows won't let me go. They keep me here, bound to this place." "Who are they?" I asked, the sense of urgency growing within me. "The shadows feed on fear and despair," she explained, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "They were once human, but they became lost. If you wish to help me, you must face them. You must free me from their grasp." I felt a surge of determination. "I won't let you suffer any longer. I'll do whatever it takes to set you free." She smiled softly, but there was an underlying fear in her gaze. "You must be careful. The shadows will test your resolve. You have to confront your fears, or they will consume you too." As her words settled in, I felt the air around us shift, the shadows deepening, swirling in a frenzied dance. It was then that I realized the shadows weren't just a manifestation of darkness. They were alive, sentient, and they were hungry. The ground beneath me trembled as the shadows began to stretch and morph into grotesque shapes, dark figures lurking at the edges of the light. A cold dread settled in my stomach, but I couldn't back down. "Stay behind me," I instructed, stepping forward as the shadows encroached. I felt their energy swirl around me, invasive and suffocating, trying to peel away my courage. The chamber echoed with whispers, taunting me with my deepest fears. Memories from my past, insecurities, regrets, they all came rushing back, clawing at my mind. But as I stood there, the girl's presence behind me provided a flicker of strength. I gripped the locket tightly, letting its weight anchor me. "I'm not afraid of you," I shouted, my voice rising above the cacophony of shadows. The dark figures hesitated, a flicker of uncertainty shimmering in their form. "You cannot escape your fears," they hissed, their voices melding into one, a chorus of despair. "You are one of us." "No," I declared, channeling every ounce of resolve I had. "I refuse to be consumed by you." With that declaration, I took a step forward, drawing strength from the girl's spirit. Light erupted from the locket, illuminating the chamber and pushing back the shadows. The figures shrieked, their forms writhing and distorting as the light enveloped them. The air crackled with energy as I focused, calling upon the courage I had buried within. "You don't control me," I shouted, forcing the light to surge forth. The shadows writhed and twisted, attempting to snuff out the illumination, but it was too late. The light exploded in a brilliant display, scattering the shadows into the recesses of the chamber. I felt the girl's presence beside me, her energy merging with mine, and together we stood against the darkness. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice filled with hope. "You're freeing me." As the shadows dissolved, I felt a shift in the atmosphere. The oppressive weight that had haunted me began to lift, replaced by a warmth that filled the room. The girl's form shimmered, growing brighter as the darkness receded. With a final burst of light, the chamber transformed, the glowing crystals illuminating the walls and casting a golden hue over everything. I watched in awe as the girl smiled, her expression shifting from sorrow to relief. "Thank you for believing in me," she said, her voice now full of light. "You've set me free." As she faded into the light, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace wash over me. The shadows had been vanquished, and in their place, a new beginning was born. Don't forget to subscribe in the channel and like the video for more contents. There was something unnerving about the mirror that had belonged to my grandmother. I had inherited it after her passing, a large, ornate piece with a gilded frame and intricate designs that twisted like vines around the edges. It stood tall in my living room, reflecting not just my image, but also an unsettling aura that seemed to emanate from within its depths. I had always been fascinated by mirrors, captivated by the idea that they could reveal hidden truths. But this particular mirror seemed to guard its secrets jealously. Every time I gazed into it, I felt a prickling sensation, as though something beyond my reflection was watching me back. I had heard stories about how mirrors could trap souls or reflect not just the physical, but also the emotional. I stood before it one evening, the soft glow of the setting sun casting long shadows across the room. I brushed my fingers over the intricate carvings, feeling the coolness of the surface beneath my touch. A memory flashed through my mind, my grandmother's soft voice warning me never to look too closely into it, as if there were things best left unseen. That night, curiosity gnawed at me as I settled onto the couch, unable to shake the feeling that the mirror held something significant. I took a deep breath and decided to confront it. With the flick of a switch, the room was plunged into darkness, save for the flickering candlelight that danced along the walls. As I sat there, my heart raced. I leaned closer to the mirror, peering intently into the glass. At first, I saw only my own reflection, the familiar features staring back at me. But then, as if the mirror was sensing my desire for answers, the surface began to ripple like water disturbed by a breeze. I blinked, unsure if I was dreaming or if the candlelight was playing tricks on my eyes. The reflection wavered again, and suddenly, I saw not just myself, but a glimpse of a scene, a dark, wooded area bathed in moonlight. I squinted, trying to make sense of the image that flickered like a faulty projector. There, amidst the trees, stood a figure cloaked in shadows, their face obscured. A shiver ran down my spine as the feeling of being watched intensified. I couldn't shake the sense of dread that clung to me. Just as quickly as it appeared, the image vanished, leaving me staring at my own reflection once more. What was that? I whispered to myself, a mix of fear and fascination bubbling within me. The mirror had shown me something, but what did it mean? I couldn't shake the feeling that the figure was connected to my family's past, perhaps even to my grandmother herself. Sleep eluded me that night as my mind raced with questions. I needed to find answers. What secrets lay buried within the history of my family? The next morning, I set out to dig deeper, scouring through old family albums and records in search of clues that could explain the shadowy figure from my vision. As I rummaged through dusty boxes filled with memories, I stumbled upon an old journal belonging to my grandmother. The leather cover was cracked and worn, but the pages within were filled with her neat, flowing script. I settled into a chair, anticipation bubbling within me as I began to read. The entries detailed her life, recounting mundane moments alongside snippets of mystery. But one particular entry caught my attention, a night she had spent in the woods with her friends, where they encountered an enigmatic figure, a man draped in shadows. She described how he had spoken to them in hushed tones, warning them of dangers that lurked in the dark, of secrets that should never be uncovered. As I continued reading, I felt a chill settle over me. My grandmother wrote about a family curse that had plagued us for generations, something tied to that very mirror. Beware the secrets the mirror refuses to show, she had written ominously, her words echoing in my mind. What had my grandmother discovered? What had the mirror hidden away from her? And why was it now reaching out to me? I felt a heavy weight in my chest as I closed the journal, realizing I had to return to the mirror and confront whatever it was that had been revealed. With a renewed sense of determination, I headed back to the living room. The candlelight flickered wildly, as if urging me forward. I approached the mirror once more, my heart pounding in my chest. This time, I was ready to face the truth, no matter how terrifying it might be. I steadied my breathing, allowing the stillness of the room to envelop me. The air grew thick with anticipation, and as I leaned in closer, I whispered, "Show me the truth." The mirror responded, rippling and swirling like a stormy sea. I watched, entranced, as the darkness deepened, and once again, the scene unfolded before me. The same shadowy figure emerged, but this time the image grew clearer. I could see the woods again, the moonlight illuminating a path. I felt compelled to follow it, to uncover the story hidden within the shadows. Suddenly, The figure turned towards me, revealing a glimpse of a familiar face, a face I recognized all too well. It was my grandmother, her eyes wide with fear. "Don't look too closely," she cried out, her voice echoing in my ears. I stumbled back, panic coursing through my veins. What was she warning me about? The mirror's surface rippled violently, and I felt a pull, as though it wanted to draw me in. "Help me!" My grandmother's voice echoed again, but this time it was laced with desperation. I reached out, grappling with the realization that the mirror held not just secrets, but a connection to my family's past. A past that I had to confront if I were ever to understand the truth. The sound of my grandmother's voice echoed in my mind as I stumbled away from the mirror, my heart racing. I was torn between fear and an overwhelming urge to uncover the truth. I had spent so much time avoiding the dark corners of my family's history, but now it felt like the past was clawing its way back to me. I couldn't shake the image of her face, twisted in panic as she reached out from the depths of the mirror. Was she trying to warn me, or was there something more sinister at play? I felt an unsettling mix of dread and determination. I had to return to the woods my grandmother had mentioned in her journal, the very place where she encountered the shadowy figure. The next day, armed with a flashlight, my grandmother's journal, and a sense of purpose, I made my way to the edge of town where the woods lay. As I approached, the trees loomed tall and foreboding, their branches stretching like skeletal fingers against the gray sky. A sense of unease settled over me, but I pressed on, recalling my grandmother's words about the curse that had plagued our family. Following the path outlined in her journal, I ventured deeper into the woods. The air grew colder, and the silence felt oppressive, wrapping around me like a thick blanket. Every rustle of leaves made my heart skip. Each snap of a twig sounded like a warning. I felt like an intruder in this place, a realm that held memories I could barely grasp. The journal described a clearing where my grandmother and her friends had gathered that fateful night. After what felt like hours of searching, I finally stumbled upon it. The clearing was bathed in soft, dappled sunlight, but the shadows lurking at the edges felt almost alive. I hesitated for a moment, recalling the vivid warning from the mirror, but a pull urged me forward. In the center of the clearing stood an old, gnarled tree, its bark twisted and worn. My grandmother had mentioned this tree in her writings. It was where they had met the figure cloaked in shadows. I approached it cautiously, my heart pounding in my chest, and placed my hand on the rough bark. Suddenly, a chill coursed through me. I could hear whispers, soft and unintelligible at first, but then they grew clearer, forming words I could understand. "Find the truth before it's too late." I stepped back, startled. The whispers felt like they were coming from the ground beneath me, a haunting melody that tugged at my senses. My grandmother's warning echoed in my mind again. Digging deeper, I recalled my grandmother had mentioned a talisman hidden near the tree, something that could protect me from whatever darkness loomed in our family's past. According to the journal, she had buried it there for safekeeping after that terrible night. With trembling hands, I began to clear away the leaves and dirt surrounding the base of the tree. My heart raced as I unearthed an old, tarnished locket. It was surprisingly heavy, and I could feel a strange energy pulsing through it as I held it in my palm. I opened the locket to reveal a faded photograph of my grandmother as a young woman, her smile radiant and carefree. On the other side, there was an inscription that read, "For protection when shadows fall." Just as I was absorbing this, the temperature dropped suddenly, and the shadows around me seemed to thicken. I could feel the presence of something, or someone, drawing closer. My instincts screamed at me to leave, but I stood frozen, the locket clenched tightly in my hand. "Who are you?" I called out, my voice wavering. The air crackled with energy, and I could sense a figure forming in the shadows, just beyond the tree's reach. The same figure from the mirror, cloaked and obscured, began to materialize, sending a wave of panic through me. "Your grandmother should have left well enough alone," the figure whispered, its voice like gravel scraping against stone. I took a step back, heart racing as the figure stepped forward, the shadows twisting and curling around it like smoke. "You seek the truth, but the truth has its price." "No," I shouted, defiance burning in my chest. "I won't let you take anything from me." The figure laughed, a chilling sound that sent shivers down my spine. You think you can escape the legacy of your family? The secrets buried in this land? They belong to you now. I clutched the locket tighter, feeling its warmth against my palm. You don't control me. Suddenly, the figure lunged, and I felt a rush of cold air envelop me. I stumbled back, tripping over the roots of the ancient tree. My vision blurred, and the world spun as I hit the ground. The whispers grew louder, drowning out the figure's voice, until everything went dark. When consciousness returned, I found myself lying on the forest floor, disoriented and gasping for breath. The clearing felt different now. The sunlight dimmed, and the shadows deeper. The locket still clutched in my hand felt heavier, as if imbued with an otherworldly weight. As I sat up, memories rushed back, each more vivid than the last. The figure's chilling laughter echoed in my mind. I could still feel the darkness pressing in around me, suffocating and oppressive. But the whispers from before were now quiet, leaving an unsettling silence in their wake. I quickly scrambled to my feet, scanning the clearing for any sign of the figure. My heart raced as I recalled the words it had spoken. The truth has its price. The implications of those words loomed over me, filling me with dread. I needed to understand what it meant, and I needed to confront this entity before it could cause more harm. Clutching the locket tightly, I turned and made my way back to the edge of the clearing. I knew I had to return home, to piece together what my grandmother had left behind. She had faced this darkness once. Perhaps her past could guide me through mine. As I retraced my steps, the forest seemed to close in around me, the trees whispering secrets I couldn't decipher. I was acutely aware of the weight of my family's history pressing down on me, threatening to engulf me like the shadows I had just escaped. I pushed forward, determined to reach home and find answers. Once I arrived at my grandmother's house, the familiar creaks of the old wooden floors felt oddly comforting. I rushed to her study, where the journals and remnants of her life lay scattered about. The room was dim, filled with the scent of aged paper and dust, but I felt a strange connection to it. This was where she had chronicled her experiences, her fears, and the secrets that had haunted her. Flipping through the pages of her journal, I searched for any mention of the shadowy figure. The more I read, the more I realized that her encounters had been far more frequent than I had thought. It was almost as if the figure had been stalking her, slowly wearing her down until she felt compelled to hide the truth away. My fingers trembled as I reached the last entries, revealing the tale of a family curse that had begun generations ago. My grandmother described how the shadow had first appeared to her great-grandmother, whispering promises and threats alike. It sought to claim a soul for each generation, feeding off the fear it instilled. "Cursed are we," she had written, "for the sins of our ancestors have returned to claim what is theirs." As I read those words, a realization struck me like lightning. I was the next in line to face this darkness. But unlike my ancestors, I wouldn't let fear dictate my actions. I had the locket, a potential source of protection, and I would use it to confront whatever darkness awaited me. Determined, I set the journal aside and headed to the attic, where my grandmother had kept some of her most cherished belongings. There, among boxes of memories, I hoped to find something that could aid me in my battle against the shadow. The attic felt colder than the rest of the house, and as I flicked on the light, the beams illuminated dusty boxes and forgotten trinkets. I rummaged through them, seeking anything that could provide insight or strength. Most items were mundane: a sewing kit, old photographs, and various family heirlooms. But then I stumbled upon a small, intricately carved wooden box. My heart raced as I lifted it, its surface cold to the touch. I opened it slowly, revealing a collection of charms and talismans. Each one seemed to resonate with a unique energy, and I couldn't help but feel drawn to them. Among the charms lay a small silver key, ornate and gleaming in the dim light. "What do you unlock?" I wondered aloud, feeling the weight of its potential significance. It felt like a sign, a connection to something beyond my understanding. Perhaps it was the key to confronting the shadow that loomed over my family. With the box and its contents tucked under my arm, I headed back to the clearing. As I made my way through the woods, I felt the air grow thick with anticipation, the shadows swirling like a tempest. The forest seemed alive with whispers, warning me of the confrontation to come. Upon reaching the clearing, I stood tall and steady, clutching the locket and the charms tightly. "I'm not afraid of you," I called out, my voice echoing through the trees. "I've come to end this cycle." For a moment, silence enveloped me, and then the air crackled with energy. The figure emerged from the shadows, just as foreboding as before. "You think you can break the curse?" It taunted, its voice a haunting whisper. "You are but a child of this family's darkness." "I refuse to be a victim," I shouted, drawing strength from the locket's warmth. "I hold the past in my hands, and I will not let it control me." With that declaration, I pulled the silver key from my pocket and held it aloft. "Whatever you are, you cannot claim me or my family any longer." The figure recoiled slightly, shadows swirling chaotically around it. "You do not understand the cost," it hissed. "Your defiance will only lead to more suffering." "Perhaps," I replied, determination surging through me. "But it's a suffering I'm willing to face." With a swift motion, I threw the charms at the figure, each one glowing with an ethereal light as they sailed through the air. The moment they made contact, a shockwave of energy erupted, causing the shadows to waver and pull back. The figure let out a scream that echoed through the woods, a chilling sound that made the ground tremble. I stood firm, my heart racing as the darkness began to recede, a surge of hope igniting within me. "Your reign of terror ends here," I yelled, feeling a power I had never known before. "I am not afraid of you." As the light from the charms enveloped me, I felt a warmth wrap around my heart, a sense of protection that shielded me from the encroaching darkness. The figure writhed, its form distorting as it was pushed back by the light, until it finally dissolved into a mass of shadows, leaving nothing but silence in its wake. Panting and shaking, I stood alone in the clearing, the weight of the locket and the silver key heavy in my hands. I had faced the darkness and survived. But as I turned to leave, I couldn't shake the feeling that this battle was just the beginning. The sun began to dip below the horizon as I made my way back through the woods, the shadows stretching longer with each passing moment. The victory felt bittersweet, a temporary reprieve rather than an end. Although the figure had vanished for now, I sensed that its essence lingered, hidden somewhere in the depths of the forest. I returned home, the once familiar surroundings now steeped in a haunting quiet. The journals in my grandmother's study called to me, urging me to unravel the remaining secrets of our family's past. I knew the shadow might have retreated, but its presence still echoed in the stories of those who came before me. As night fell, I settled into the dim light of the study, a stack of my grandmother's journals surrounding me like old friends. Each page was a reminder of the struggles she faced against the darkness, her resilience echoing in my own heart. I opened the most worn journal, the pages yellowed with age, and began to read once more. Her writing was frantic, detailing encounters with the shadow, moments when it had shown up uninvited, feasting on fear and despair. The last few entries were the most compelling, describing a ritual she had begun to explore, one that might have held the key to permanently banishing the darkness from our lives. "The shadows can only thrive on fear," she wrote. "To confront them is to embrace the light within. I believe there is a way to break the cycle, but it requires a great sacrifice." I felt a chill run down my spine. What kind of sacrifice? Did she succeed? Or was this part of the reason for her eventual disappearance? Determined to find answers, I spent the night poring over the pages, piecing together the fragments of her life, her battles, and her hopes. The candle flickered as I read about a location, a hidden sanctuary deep within the woods that my grandmother believed could amplify her strength against the shadow. As dawn broke, the sunlight poured into the room, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. I made a decision. I would find this sanctuary, whatever it took. It felt like my destiny was entwined with my grandmother's, and I owed it to her, and to myself, to uncover the truth. With the journal tucked under my arm, I set out again into the woods. The air was cool and crisp, the sounds of nature awakening around me. I followed the directions written in the journal, my heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. After what felt like hours of navigating the winding paths, I finally arrived at a secluded glade, a beautiful but eerie place where sunlight filtered through the branches, casting intricate patterns on the forest floor. It was tranquil, but there was an undercurrent of tension, as if the very air was holding its breath. In the center of the glade stood an ancient stone altar, weathered by time and covered in moss. The altar radiated a powerful energy, and I felt drawn to it. I approached cautiously, my grandmother's words echoing in my mind. This was where she had attempted to summon strength to confront the shadow. Kneeling before the altar, I placed the journal beside me and closed my eyes. I took a deep breath, grounding myself in the moment. "I am here to honor you, Grandma," I whispered. "I am ready to face what you faced." As I sat in silence, the whispers of the forest began to swirl around me, a soft chorus of voices. With each passing moment, I felt the weight of my family's history pressing down on me. I thought of the shadow, of the fear it had instilled in my ancestors. I realized it was time to rewrite our story, to take control of my own fate. Opening my eyes, I looked at the altar and noticed intricate carvings that I hadn't seen before. They depicted scenes of struggle and triumph, ancestors confronting their fears and standing strong against the darkness. Inspired, I reached into my pocket and took out the silver key, holding it tightly. "I will break the curse," I declared, my voice steady. With the strength of my family behind me, I will not be afraid. In that moment, the air around me shifted, a surge of energy coursing through the glade. The key began to glow in my hand, illuminating the carvings on the altar with a brilliant light. The whispers grew louder, almost as if the forest itself was responding to my vow. Suddenly, the light intensified, and I felt a presence, warm and protective, enveloping me. The shadows that had haunted my family for generations began to recede, the weight of fear lifting from my heart. As the light surged, I envisioned the shadow dissolving, its malevolent grip on my family finally breaking. With a deep breath, I pressed the key against the altar, hoping to unlock the truth my grandmother had sought. In that instant, I was transported back to the moment I first encountered the shadow, the echoes of my ancestors' struggles blending with my own. I felt their courage flowing through me, igniting a fire of defiance that I had never known. When the vision faded, I found myself back in the glade, breathless but empowered. The key had vanished, absorbed by the altar, but I felt its strength coursing through my veins. I had taken the first step toward breaking the cycle, and for the first time, hope blossomed in my heart. After that pivotal moment in the glade, I felt a sense of purpose fueling my every step. The shadow had not fully vanished. I knew it was still lurking somewhere in the depths of the woods, waiting for the opportune moment to strike. But I had taken a stand, ignited by the courage of my ancestors and my determination to reclaim my family's legacy. Returning home felt different. The once familiar walls seemed more inviting, their shadows less threatening. Yet, the uncertainty lingered like an echo, reminding me that the battle was far from over. I settled back into my grandmother's study, determined to decipher the rest of her journal and find the key to the final confrontation. Hours slipped by as I delved deeper into her writings. Each entry revealed more about her struggles and victories against the darkness. She had devised rituals and strategies, but there was something deeper, something unspoken that felt like a gap in the narrative. Late into the night, exhaustion washed over me, but I pushed through, the candlelight flickering wildly as if mirroring my thoughts. Suddenly, I came across a passage that made my heart race. "I have discovered that the shadow thrives on isolation and fear. To combat it, I must gather strength from those who believe in the light," she wrote. "There are stories of others who have faced similar darkness. If I can find them, perhaps together we can defeat the shadow once and for all." It was clear my grandmother had sought allies, people who had encountered the shadow in their own lives. I realized that I needed to do the same. It was time to reach out to others, to share our experiences and gather our strength. The next day, I decided to visit the local library, hoping to uncover more about the history of my family and the shadow that haunted us. I made my way through the aisles, the scent of old books filling the air. and began to search through archives and old newspapers. As I sifted through the brittle pages, one article caught my eye: mysterious disappearances linked to the shadow in the woods. My heart raced as I read the accounts of others who had faced similar entities. The stories echoed my own experiences, detailing how those affected often felt isolated and alone, preyed upon by their fears. One story stood out: a woman named Lila, who had lost her brother to the shadow years ago. The article mentioned her unwavering resolve to uncover the truth, and I felt a spark of connection. If she had faced the same darkness, perhaps she could help me confront it. I jotted down her last known address and left the library with renewed determination. That evening, I made my way to Lila's house, which was on the outskirts of town. The sun had set, and the streetlights flickered ominously as I approached. Her home was small but well kept, and I felt a sense of comfort as I knocked on the door. After a few moments, Lila opened it, her eyes widening in surprise. She looked to be in her late 30s, with an air of strength that immediately put me at ease. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice warm yet guarded. "I'm sorry to intrude," I replied, my heart racing. "My name is Ava. I've been researching my family's history, and I came across your story. I know about the shadow that took your brother. I think I'm facing it too." Lila studied me for a moment, her expression shifting from surprise to understanding. "Come in," she said, stepping aside. "I've been waiting for someone like you." As we settled in her living room, I shared my experiences, the encounters with the shadow, the journal, the sanctuary in the woods. Lila listened intently, nodding along as I spoke. When I finished, she leaned back, a thoughtful expression on her face. "I lost my brother to that darkness," she said quietly. "He was a bright light in my life, but it consumed him. I've spent years trying to understand how to fight it. I thought I was alone in this struggle, but it seems the shadow has connected us." I felt a wave of empathy wash over me. "Together, we can confront it," I suggested. "If we share our stories and strengths, perhaps we can finally put an end to its reign." Lila's eyes glimmered with hope, and for the first time, I felt a flicker of certainty that we could overcome the darkness together. We spent the rest of the evening strategizing, discussing the rituals my grandmother had written about, and combining them with Lila's knowledge of the shadow's behaviors. As the night deepened, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were onto something significant. The shadow might have been powerful, but united, we were stronger. I could sense the presence of my ancestors, their courage bolstering our resolve. "Tomorrow," Lila said, "let's gather more people. We need to create a circle of support. The more we share our experiences, the less power the shadow will have over us." I nodded in agreement, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. It was time to rally others, to break the cycle of isolation that the shadow thrived on. Together, we would form a community united against the darkness. Don't forget to subscribe in the channel and like the video for more contents. The air was thick with tension as I lay in bed, trying to shake off the remnants of a nightmare that had plagued my childhood. It had been years since the dream visited me, but its grip was still terrifyingly familiar. The same dark figure, the same feeling of dread. I could still hear the echo of its chilling whisper as it called my name, luring me deeper into the shadows. I woke up, heart racing, the faint light of dawn filtering through my curtains. The sun rose on the day of my childhood friend's wedding, a day meant for celebration. Yet, all I could think about was the dream that had invaded my sleep. I had promised myself to leave the past behind, but it seemed the nightmares had other plans. After a hurried breakfast, I prepared for the wedding, trying to push the nightmare from my mind. The day was beautiful, the sun shining brightly as I arrived at the venue. Flowers adorned every corner, laughter filled the air, and I found comfort in the familiarity of my friends gathered together to celebrate love. But even in the midst of joy, a shadow lurked at the back of my mind. As I chatted with familiar faces, I noticed someone standing slightly apart from the crowd. It was Daniel, the groom's older brother. He had always been somewhat of an enigma in our lives, a figure wrapped in mystery. He had left town years ago, but the moment I saw him, a shiver ran down my spine. It felt as if he were somehow connected to the darkness of my nightmares. "Hey, it's been a while," he said, a friendly smile on his face that didn't quite reach his eyes. There was a weight behind his words, an unspoken history that seemed to linger in the air. Yeah, it has, I replied, trying to mask my unease. How have you been? Oh, life happens, he said, glancing away, his gaze wandering to the horizon. But I've always kept an eye on this place. It's hard to forget where you come from. I nodded, feeling the tension build between us. Our conversation felt loaded, as if unearthing secrets we both wished to bury. I could feel the wedding festivities swirling around us, but all I could focus on was Daniel's presence. Something about him felt eerily similar to the figure in my nightmare. As the ceremony began, I tried to shake off the feeling, immersing myself in the joy of the moment. Yet, as the vows were exchanged, a chill ran down my spine. The haunting image from my dream resurfaced, intertwining with reality. It was as if the figure had stepped from my subconscious into the real world, manifesting in the very place I sought refuge. After the ceremony, I found myself wandering away from the crowd, seeking a moment of solitude. I stepped into a quiet garden area, the sun filtering through the leaves, casting dappled shadows on the ground. As I inhaled the fragrant air, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Suddenly, a rustle in the bushes snapped me back to reality. My heart raced as I turned, expecting to see a guest or perhaps a wandering animal. Instead, I came face to face with Daniel, his expression shifting from friendly to something darker. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice low and almost melodic, yet there was an unsettling undertone that sent shivers down my spine. "You seem distant." "I'm fine," I replied, forcing a smile. But deep down, a sense of dread began to bloom. "Childhood memories can be haunting, can't they?" he continued, his eyes narrowing slightly. "Sometimes they refuse to let go." His words hung in the air, heavy with implications. It was as if he knew about my nightmares, knew the fear that had shadowed my childhood. I wanted to confront him, to demand what he knew, but my voice caught in my throat. Instead, I backed away slowly, searching for an escape. "Don't run away," he called softly, almost coaxingly. "You can't escape the past." I turned and fled, racing back toward the main gathering. My heart pounded in my chest as I tried to blend into the crowd, the laughter and cheers surrounding me like a fragile barrier against the darkness. But even in the midst of friends and joy, the weight of my nightmares lingered, feeding off my anxiety. As the evening progressed, I couldn't shake Daniel's presence from my mind. He was always nearby, watching, lurking in the shadows. Each time I caught a glimpse of him, my heart raced, and the memories of my childhood nightmares clawed their way to the surface. Finally, as the night deepened, I found solace in the embrace of my friends. They danced and celebrated, but my mind was elsewhere. The dream that haunted me as a child was creeping into my reality, and Daniel was at the center of it all. Just as I began to relax, the lights flickered ominously, and a chill swept through the venue. I glanced around, noticing the way the shadows seemed to stretch and twist, forming shapes that felt all too familiar. Panic surged within me. With determination, I resolved to confront Daniel. If he was connected to my nightmares, I needed to understand why. I pushed through the throngs of guests, seeking him out. But as I approached where I had last seen him, he was gone. I scanned the area, confusion gripping me. Where could he have gone? The night felt heavy with secrets, and the realization hit me. This wasn't just a wedding celebration. It was a manifestation of my fears. The flickering lights returned to their steady glow, casting the venue in warm hues that felt comforting. Yet I couldn't shake the chill that settled deep in my bones. I stepped outside for a breath of fresh air, hoping the cool night breeze would clear my mind. The garden, once a serene escape, now felt like a labyrinth of memories and shadows. As I wandered further into the garden, I found a secluded bench beneath an old oak tree, its branches swaying gently in the night wind. I sat down, my heart still racing from the unsettling encounter with Daniel. Why did he feel so familiar? And why did his presence conjure memories I thought I had buried? Lost in thought, I replayed the fragments of my childhood, the late-night whispers of my friends, the shadows that danced along the walls of my bedroom. the relentless feeling of being watched. It was as if the past was slowly unfurling, revealing layers I hadn't dared to explore. Suddenly, a rustling sound disrupted my reverie. I looked up to see Daniel standing at the edge of the garden, his silhouette illuminated by the soft glow of the venue lights. He appeared calm, but there was something lurking beneath his exterior, an intensity that both intrigued and terrified me. "I thought I might find you here," he said, stepping closer. "You seemed lost. I just needed some air," I replied, my voice shaky. "You have a strange way of making people feel uneasy, Daniel." A shadow flickered across his face, a smile that felt more like a mask than genuine warmth. "I've always had that effect, haven't I? But don't be afraid. I'm not here to harm you." "Then what do you want?" I asked, crossing my arms defensively. "You showed up out of nowhere, and now it feels like you're stalking me." He laughed softly, but it held an edge of something darker. "Stalking? No, I prefer to think of it as watching. There's so much history here, and you're part of it, whether you realize it or not." "What do you mean?" I demanded, curiosity battling with my instinct to flee. "What history?" He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Do you remember the games we used to play as children? The ones where we dared each other to venture into the dark corners of our imaginations? There was a reason we did it. There were things we were meant to find." The word sent a chill racing down my spine. I did remember those games. Our relentless exploration of the abandoned houses, the creepy stories we shared, the shadows that felt alive. "That was years ago," I replied, trying to dismiss the memories. "We were just kids. Kids who were touched by something greater than ourselves," Daniel insisted, his eyes glinting with a feverish light. "You felt it too, didn't you? The pull of the unknown, the dark whispers that beckoned us." I shuddered, the memories of that darkness flooding back. The thrill of exploring abandoned places, the haunting laughter that echoed in the silence, and the figure I had seen in my dreams. "You don't understand," I said, my voice trembling. "That was all just imagination. I left it behind." "Did you?" he pressed, his intensity deepening. "Or did you bury it, waiting for the right moment to resurface?" Before I could respond, a sudden chill swept through the garden, and the lights flickered again. Panic gripped me as I instinctively took a step back. The night air grew heavy, filled with an ominous energy that crackled like static. "What is happening?" I gasped, my heart racing. Daniel's expression shifted to one of concern, but there was an unsettling hint of excitement in his eyes. "It's just the night reminding you of what lies beneath the surface. The shadows can reveal secrets if you're willing to listen." A low whisper echoed through the trees, and I felt an eerie sensation creeping up my spine. The atmosphere thickened, and I suddenly felt like a child again, trapped in a nightmare with no way out. "Let's not linger here," Daniel said, his voice softening. "I don't want you to be scared. Follow me. I know a place where we can talk, where the past won't feel so suffocating." Against my better judgment, I found myself nodding. The curiosity he sparked in me was stronger than the fear. I wanted answers, and despite the warning bells in my mind, I followed him deeper into the garden, away from the celebration and into the darkness. As we walked, the laughter from the wedding faded, replaced by the sounds of the night, rustling leaves, distant crickets, and the heavy thumping of my own heart. Daniel led me to a small shed at the far end of the garden, hidden behind thick bushes. Its door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit space cluttered with old tools and forgotten memories. "Here we are," he said, stepping inside and gesturing for me to follow. The air was thick with dust and a hint of something else, something musty and ancient. As I entered, the door creaked shut behind me, plunging us into semi-darkness. "What are we doing here?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Daniel stepped closer, his eyes glimmering in the low light. "We're confronting the past. You need to understand what happened before you can truly move on." Before I could respond, he reached into his pocket and pulled out an old, faded photograph. "Do you recognize this?" he asked, handing it to me. I took it, my hands trembling as I examined the image. It was a group photo of children, laughing and playing. My heart sank as I recognized myself. But the others were faces I had long forgotten, friends from a time before the nightmares, before the darkness. This was taken at the old playground, Daniel explained, his voice steady. The place where we made our childhood memories. Suddenly, a name echoed in my mind, Clara. She had been part of our group, a bright girl with a wild imagination. But she had vanished one summer, leaving behind only whispers and questions. My throat tightened as the memories flooded back. She disappeared. I whispered, the weight of realization crashing over me. No one ever found her. Daniel nodded, his expression grave, and her absence marked all of us. But what if I told you she's still here, in some form? What if the shadows have kept her close? The air in the shed grew heavy, and I felt the pulse of my childhood fears return, wrapping around me like a suffocating blanket. What are you saying? I asked, dread filling my heart. I'm saying that the past doesn't just disappear, he replied, his eyes piercing into mine. It haunts us, waiting for the moment we're ready to confront it. Clara's story is part of yours, and it's time you understood the truth. As he spoke, the shadows in the shed seemed to writhe and twist, whispering secrets that sent chills through me. I glanced around, feeling the weight of those lost memories pressing in on me. Could Clara's disappearance be connected to my nightmares? Was Daniel right? Had the darkness held on to her, weaving her story into my own? I felt a deep-seated fear take root, but alongside it was an undeniable pull toward the truth. Show me, I said, my voice steadying. If there's something I need to understand, I want to see it. I want to know what happened. Daniel smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. Then brace yourself. The shadows may reveal more than you expect. Daniel's expression shifted, a mix of apprehension and anticipation flickering across his face. The air crackled with tension as he stepped back, allowing me to take the lead. I felt as though I was being drawn deeper into a web of secrets, the faint whispers of the past echoing in my mind like a haunting melody. What do we do now? I asked, gripping the photograph tightly. The faded smiles of my childhood friends seemed to mock me, reminding me of the innocence we once had. First, we need to set the stage, Daniel said, his voice lowering to a conspiratorial whisper. The darkness has a way of revealing itself when we're willing to confront it. You must allow yourself to remember. He reached into the depths of the shed, rummaging through the clutter until he pulled out a small, dusty lantern. With a flick of his wrist, he ignited the flame, casting a warm, flickering light around the cramped space. Shadows danced across the walls, and I felt the atmosphere shift. Now, he said, his eyes glimmering in the lantern's glow, tell me what you remember about Clara. I took a deep breath, forcing my mind back to that summer, the one that had twisted into a nightmare. She was different. She always had these wild stories about fairies and monsters, things we didn't believe but loved to hear. One day, she dared us to explore the woods behind the playground, where the adults warned us not to go. Ah, the woods, Daniel said, nodding. That's where the boundary between our world and something darker begins. What happened next? I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. We went. Clara led the way, laughing and teasing us to keep up. But when we reached the clearing, she suddenly stopped. She looked scared. We heard noises, whispers, things we couldn't explain. We all ran back, but Clara, she didn't come with us. Did you look for her? He asked gently. I hesitated, shame washing over me. We did, but only for a little while. We thought she'd gone home, and when we didn't find her, we convinced ourselves she was just playing a game. It wasn't until the next day that we realized she was missing. Daniel watched me intently, and I could see the weight of my confession settling between us. You've carried this burden for too long, he said softly, but it's time to let it go. Clara's story is part of yours, and you need to uncover what happened to her. What do you mean? I asked, panic creeping into my voice. I can't change the past. Perhaps not, but you can confront it. Together, we can return to the woods, to the place where it all began. The shadows might still hold the answers you seek. A chill swept through the shed, and I felt an overwhelming sense of foreboding wash over me. The thought of returning to that place, where my childhood fears had taken root, terrified me. Yet, the curiosity to discover the truth about Clara pulled at my heart like a magnet. I don't know if I can face that, I admitted, my voice trembling. What if I find something I'm not ready to see? Then we'll face it together, Daniel assured me, his tone steady. You won't be alone this time. I'll be with you. With a deep breath, I steel myself. Okay, let's go. As we exited the shed, the cool night air enveloped us, and the garden felt alive with whispers of the past. We walked side by side, the flickering lantern casting a warm glow as we ventured toward the edge of the property, where the dark outline of the woods loomed in the distance. With each step, the memories surged. I could almost hear Clara's laughter echoing in the distance, mixed with the eerie whispers that had haunted my dreams. The tension in the air thickened, an invisible force pulling us closer to the edge of the woods. When we finally reached the entrance, the trees stood tall and foreboding, their branches intertwining like gnarled fingers reaching for the sky. The path was overgrown, but I could still make out the faint trail we had taken as children. My heart raced, a mix of fear and determination driving me forward. I can't believe we're doing this, I muttered, glancing back at Daniel, who remained resolute beside me. We're not just doing this for Clara, he replied, his voice calm. We're doing this for you too. It's time to confront the shadows that have lingered. As we stepped deeper into the woods, the air grew colder, and an unsettling stillness settled around us. The sounds of the night faded into an eerie silence, broken only by the crunch of leaves beneath our feet. It felt as though we had crossed into another realm, one where time and memory intertwined. Suddenly, Daniel stopped, raising a hand to signal me to do the same. Ahead, the clearing opened up, the familiar sight sending a shiver down my spine. The old swing set still stood there, rusted and forgotten, just as I remembered. But as I looked closer, I noticed something different, something that sent a jolt of fear coursing through me. The ground around the swings was disturbed, as if someone had been digging. Do you see that? I whispered, my heart racing. Daniel nodded, his expression grave. Let's find out what's happening. We approached the swing set, the whispers of the past swirling around us like a storm. As we drew nearer, I felt a presence, an overwhelming sensation of being watched, as if Clara herself were urging me to uncover the truth. Kneeling by the disturbed earth, I brushed away the leaves and dirt, revealing something glinting in the fading light. With trembling hands, I pulled it free, gasping at the sight. It was a locket, silver and ornate, with intricate designs etched into its surface. My heart raced as I recognized it. Clara had worn a locket just like this one. Clara, I breathed, turning to Daniel, my voice shaking. This was hers. Then we're on the right track, he said, his tone steady but urgent. We need to dig deeper. The shadows around us seemed to pulse with energy, urging me on. As I began to clear more dirt away, the unease in the air transformed into a potent mix of fear and determination. It was time to uncover what had been hidden for too long. With every handful of dirt I pushed aside, memories flooded back. Snippets of laughter, games, and the haunting moment Clara had disappeared. I felt a sense of urgency coursing through me as I unearthed the locket, the cold metal reminding me that Clara was not just a shadow of my past. She had been a real person with dreams and fears, just like me. As the soil gave way, I noticed something else beneath the surface, something larger. I glanced at Daniel, whose brow was furrowed with concentration. Keep going, he urged, his voice firm yet encouraging. Whatever is buried here, it's important. I took a deep breath and continued digging, my heart pounding. The adrenaline surged as I unearthed a small wooden box, weathered and ancient, its edges frayed from time. I brushed off the dirt, revealing a faded design on the lid, a swirling pattern that looked almost familiar. Help me with this, I said, my voice trembling with anticipation. Together, we pried the box open, revealing its contents, a collection of trinkets, old photographs, and a diary that looked as if it had belonged to Clara. I lifted the diary gingerly, the leather cracked and fragile. As I opened it, the scent of aged paper wafted up, and I felt the weight of Clara's thoughts pressing against me. The pages were filled with her looping handwriting, each word brimming with her hopes and fears. What does it say? Daniel asked, leaning closer, I flipped through the pages until I found an entry dated just before Clara had disappeared. I can hear them again. I read aloud, my voice barely a whisper. The whispers in the woods. They call to me, and I can't ignore them. There's something out there, something that wants to be found. I need to see it for myself. A chill ran down my spine as I continued. She was scared, Daniel. She knew something was wrong. Keep reading, he urged, his eyes fixed on the words. I turned the page, the trembling of my hands intensifying. The others don't understand. They laugh at me, but I know what I saw. A shadow in the trees. It watches me. I think it wants me to follow it. Follow it, Daniel echoed, his brow furrowing. That's exactly what we're doing right now. Yeah, I said, feeling the gravity of her words weigh heavy on my heart. But we can't follow the shadows blindly. Just then, a rustle in the underbrush made us both freeze. I looked at Daniel, and we shared a moment of unspoken fear. Did you hear that? I whispered. Stay calm, he instructed, scanning the surrounding woods. It could just be an animal. I nodded, forcing myself to focus on the diary, but the unsettling feeling in my gut grew stronger. I flipped to another entry. I have to go back to the clearing tomorrow. The shadows show me something, and I can't shake the feeling that it needs me. I'll prove to everyone that I'm not imagining things. Daniel, she was determined to confront whatever was out there. I said, feeling a mix of dread and empathy for my childhood friend. And it cost her everything. There's more, he urged gently, indicating the next page. Keep going. I took a deep breath and continued. I'll bring the others with me. They'll see the truth, and maybe then they'll stop teasing me. If I don't come back, I hope they understand that I had to try. The weight of her final words hit me like a punch. What if she really was trying to help us? What if she thought she could lead us away from danger? Or into it, Daniel replied grimly. We need to be cautious. Whatever she encountered here could still be lurking in the shadows. Just then, a distant sound echoed through the woods, a low, almost sorrowful hum that seemed to resonate with the trees themselves. It sent shivers racing down my spine. What is that? I asked, my heart pounding in my chest. I don't know, but it feels alive, Daniel murmured, his gaze fixed on the treetops. We should move. Whatever it is, it's drawing closer. I carefully placed the diary back in the box, my thoughts racing. We need to follow the sound, don't we? Yes, but we need to be smart about it, he replied. Let's stick close together and watch each other's backs. The woods may hold secrets, but we're not here to become part of them. As we ventured deeper into the forest, the hum grew louder, almost melodic, intertwining with the rustle of leaves and the crunch of twigs underfoot. It felt as if the woods were alive, beckoning us to uncover whatever truth lay hidden within. The atmosphere shifted, darkening as we approached a clearing that felt eerily familiar. The trees parted, revealing a small grove with a circle of stones in the center. The air was thick with tension, and the hum vibrated in my chest, pulling me closer. There's something here, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Daniel nodded, his expression grave. Whatever Clara sensed, we're about to find out. As we stepped into the clearing, the hum crescendoed, enveloping us in a shroud of sound. The air felt electric, charged with anticipation. I could see shadows moving within the trees, flickering at the edges of my vision. Clara, I called out, my voice echoing in the stillness. If you're here, show us the way. The hum swelled, and the shadows converged, forming shapes that seemed to pulse and sway. I felt a strange connection, as if the energy of the woods was responding to my plea. The darkness shifted, revealing a path leading deeper into the grove. Follow me, I urged Daniel, my heart racing with equal parts fear and determination. We stepped into the path, the shadows guiding us forward, and I could feel the weight of Clara's presence behind us, urging us onward. It was time to uncover the truth, whatever it may hold. As we walked deeper into the grove, the shadows seemed to close in around us, flickering like candlelight in the darkness. The hum that had drawn us here now pulsated through the air, almost like a heartbeat, resonating with an energy that felt both inviting and terrifying. Each step brought us closer to something unknown, and I could feel Clara's presence urging us on. "Do you feel that?" Daniel asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's like the forest is alive." "I do," I replied, glancing around at the towering trees that loomed over us like ancient sentinels. Their gnarled branches stretched towards the sky, creating a canopy that filtered the fading light. It's almost as if we're being welcomed or warned. The path wound through the trees, leading us to a clearing that felt different from the one we had just left. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and wildflowers, and the hum intensified, reverberating in my bones. In the center of the clearing stood a large stone altar, covered in moss and lichen, as if it had been forgotten by time. "What is this place?" Daniel asked, stepping closer to the altar. "It feels ancient." "I don't know," I said, my voice trembling with awe and fear. "But it feels like it has a purpose." As we approached, the hum grew louder, almost drowning out the sounds of the forest. I could see markings etched into the stone, patterns that resembled the swirling designs on the box we had found. They seemed to pulse with energy, almost as if they were alive, telling a story of their own. "Clara must have come here," I said, tracing my fingers over the markings. Maybe she thought this was where she would find answers. Just then, a movement caught my eye. Shadows flitted at the edges of the clearing, darting in and out of sight. I turned to Daniel, my heart racing. "Did you see that?" He nodded, his expression serious. "We're not alone." The shadows thickened, and from their depths emerged a figure, a woman cloaked in darkness, her features obscured. She moved with an eerie grace, gliding towards us as if the shadows themselves were guiding her. The hum intensified, harmonizing with the rhythm of her movements. "Who are you?" I called out, stepping back instinctively. "I am the guardian of this place," she said, her voice echoing as if carried by the wind. "I protect the secrets of the forest and the stories of those who came before." "What do you want with us?" Daniel asked, his voice steady despite the unease creeping into my gut. "The echoes of the past have brought you here," the woman replied, her gaze piercing through the shadows. "You seek the truth of your friend, Clara. She has called out to you from beyond, and her spirit lingers in this place." "Clara," I whispered, my heart aching at the thought of her lost and alone. "What happened to her?" "The shadows you see are the remnants of her spirit, bound to this grove," the guardian explained. "She sought knowledge and power, but became ensnared by the darkness that dwells within. Her cries for help have lingered in the air, waiting for someone to listen." "What can we do?" I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. "How can we help her?" "To free Clara, you must confront the darkness that holds her captive," the guardian said, raising her hand as if inviting us closer. "Only by facing your own fears and unraveling the truth will you break the bond that ties her to this place." "What if we can't?" Daniel questioned, glancing at me. "What if we're not strong enough?" The guardian's gaze softened. "Strength comes from understanding and courage. The path ahead will not be easy, but together, you hold the power to change the course of fate." I felt a surge of determination. "We're not going to abandon her. We'll do whatever it takes." "Then step forward and let the shadows reveal what must be seen," the guardian urged, gesturing towards the altar. "The truth lies within, waiting to be uncovered." Daniel and I exchanged a glance, the weight of our decision hanging in the air. With a deep breath, I stepped toward the altar, feeling the energy pulsing beneath my feet. The markings began to glow softly, illuminating the clearing with an otherworldly light. "Are you ready?" I asked Daniel, my voice steady despite the fear swirling inside me. "Ready as I'll ever be," he replied, taking my hand. Together, we placed our hands on the altar, feeling the warmth radiate from the stone. The hum intensified, vibrating through our bodies as visions flooded our minds. Fragments of Clara's laughter, her tears, and the shadows that had claimed her. The world around us shifted, and I found myself standing in a darkened room, the air thick with dread. Clara's silhouette stood before me, her face twisted in fear. "Help me," she cried, her voice echoing in the void. "Clara," I shouted, reaching out to her, but the darkness swallowed her. The shadows closed in, whispering secrets of despair and loss. "Face it," Daniel's voice broke through the haze. "We can't let fear control us." I nodded, summoning every ounce of courage. "We're here for you, Clara. We won't let the darkness take you." As the shadows writhed around us, I focused on the memories, the joy, the friendship, the laughter we had shared. I could feel Clara's presence growing stronger, her spirit fighting against the darkness that sought to claim her. In that moment, the shadows began to retreat, shrieking in anger. I felt the warmth of Clara's spirit wrap around me, and I knew we were on the verge of breaking the bond that held her captive. "Together," I cried, squeezing Daniel's hand. "We can do this." As we channeled our strength, the shadows shattered like glass, and light burst forth, illuminating the darkness that had enshrouded us. Clara's figure emerged from the light, her eyes shining with hope. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice clear now, free from the weight of despair. "You found me." And in that moment, the forest transformed, the shadows retreating to reveal a path bathed in sunlight. We had confronted the darkness, and Clara was finally free. Don't forget to subscribe in the channel and like the video for more contents. Lily had always been intrigued by her late grandmother's belongings, but when she finally inherited the old Victorian house, her curiosity reached new heights. The house stood at the end of a long, winding road, cloaked in thick vines and surrounded by an overgrown garden. It was a place steeped in memories, each room whispering secrets of the past. But nothing could prepare her for what she would uncover within its walls. As Lily stepped inside, the familiar scent of aged wood and lavender filled the air, reminiscent of countless summers spent visiting her grandmother. Sunlight streamed through the dusty windows, casting intricate patterns on the hardwood floors. Her grandmother had always been an enigma, a woman of stories and mysteries, and Lily felt a pang of nostalgia as she wandered through the rooms, touching the faded furniture and recalling the tales her grandmother would share. In the corner of the attic, hidden beneath a pile of moth-eaten blankets, Lily discovered an old trunk. Its surface was marred with scratches and dust, but something about it called to her. Kneeling down, she brushed away the cobwebs and carefully opened the trunk, revealing a jumble of forgotten treasures. Old photographs, delicate lace handkerchiefs, and various trinkets. But it was the diary nestled in the corner that captured her attention. Bound in cracked leather and adorned with a tarnished clasp, it looked as if it had not been touched in years. Lily felt a surge of excitement as she unfastened the clasp, the soft creak of the diary echoing in the quiet attic. Flipping through the pages, she discovered her grandmother's neat handwriting, filled with thoughts, dreams, and musings. But as she continued to read, the entries began to shift from whimsical stories to darker revelations. The last entry sent a chill down her spine, detailing an ominous figure that haunted her grandmother's dreams, a shadowy presence that seemed to loom over her life. "What is this?" Lily whispered to herself, her heart racing. The words felt heavy, laden with fear and a sense of urgency. Her grandmother had written about strange occurrences, whispers in the night, fleeting shadows, and an overwhelming sense of dread that seemed to consume her. The final entry, dated just days before her grandmother's death, mentioned a hidden truth that needed to be uncovered. Lily's breath quickened as she read on, the entries revealing her grandmother's struggle against an unknown force. It was as if she had been battling a darkness that had followed her through generations. The last words echoed hauntingly. "If you are reading this, my dear Lily, it is time for you to know the truth. The shadows in our family have a name, and they are hungry." She closed the diary, her hands trembling. What had her grandmother uncovered, and what did it mean for her? A sense of foreboding washed over her as she realized that she had stumbled upon something far greater than mere memories. This was a warning, a call to action. With a newfound determination, Lily resolved to delve deeper into her grandmother's past. She needed to understand the truth behind the diary's words and the shadows that had plagued her family. But as she descended from the attic, the air around her seemed to thicken, the shadows creeping along the walls. She shivered, brushing it off as an overactive imagination. Little did she know, her discovery had awakened something that had long been buried. Lily couldn't shake the feeling that the diary was only the beginning. The weight of her grandmother's words echoed in her mind, urging her to unearth the family secrets that lay hidden in the depths of the old Victorian house. With each passing moment, her curiosity morphed into an obsession. She spent hours combing through every room, searching for clues that might lead her closer to the truth. Her first stop was the small study, a room filled with books that had once belonged to her grandmother. Dust particles danced in the sunlight as Lily pulled volumes off the shelves, flipping through pages in search of anything that might help her understand the diary's ominous warnings. She found books on folklore, local history, and a collection of her grandmother's poetry, but nothing that provided a clear answer. Frustrated but undeterred, Lily took a break and ventured into the garden. It was overgrown and wild, with flowers fighting for space among tangled weeds. She had spent many afternoons playing here as a child, but the once vibrant garden now felt like a forgotten relic, shrouded in melancholy. As she knelt to inspect an errant flower, something glinted in the dirt. Intrigued, she dug deeper, uncovering a small, ornate locket. The locket was cool and heavy in her palm, intricately designed with swirling patterns. As she opened it, she found two faded photographs, one of her grandmother as a young woman, and the other of a man she didn't recognize. He had sharp features and intense eyes, a somber expression on his face. On the back of the locket, inscribed in delicate script, were the words "Forever Bound by Blood." Lily's heart raced as she connected the pieces. Who was this man, and what role did he play in her grandmother's life? The diary mentioned a family curse and the weight of ancestry. She needed to know more. That evening, determined to dig deeper, Lily sat at her grandmother's old writing desk, the diary open before her. She started researching the family tree, tracing back to her grandmother's childhood and her ancestors. As she connected the dots, she uncovered a pattern. Several family members had vanished under mysterious circumstances, each linked to a shadowy figure described in her grandmother's writings. One name stood out: Jonathan Blackwood, a distant relative known for his reclusive nature. The more she read about him, the more chilling the stories became. He was rumored to have dabbled in the occult, conducting experiments that were said to open doors to darker realms. Family lore suggested that those who crossed his path never returned the same, if they returned at all. Lily felt a shiver run down her spine as she remembered the locket and the warning in the diary. The shadows her grandmother had written about seemed to weave a tapestry of dread, one that was now encroaching upon her reality. She decided to search for more information on Jonathan, hoping to find answers that could dispel the growing unease in her heart. The next day, she visited the local library, poring over newspapers and old records. Hours passed as she sifted through the yellowed pages, and just when she began to lose hope, she stumbled upon an article detailing Jonathan Blackwood's disappearance. He had vanished without a trace over 50 years ago, just as rumors of his occult practices began to spread. The article mentioned a dark ceremony that was said to have taken place in the woods behind his home, leading to speculation about what really happened that night. The final line of the article struck her. Some say the woods still whisper his name, beckoning those who dare to listen. Lily's heart raced. She had to go to those woods. She had to uncover the truth, no matter how dangerous the journey might be. As she left the library, the sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows that felt more alive than ever. The eerie quiet of the town wrapped around her, and for the first time, she felt like she was being watched. The unease coiled within her, but determination pushed her forward. Arriving home, she gathered supplies for her venture into the woods: flashlight, water, and her grandmother's diary. As darkness fell, she felt an inexplicable pull towards the trees, as if something within them called out to her. The moon hung low in the sky, casting a silvery glow over the landscape as Lily stepped into the woods. The air was thick with an earthy scent, and the sounds of nocturnal creatures filled the night. Each step seemed to amplify her heartbeat, a reminder of the unknown path ahead. With her flashlight illuminating the tangled roots and underbrush, she pressed on, guided by a sense of purpose that overshadowed her fear. As she ventured deeper into the woods, the atmosphere shifted. The sounds of nature seemed to fade, replaced by an unsettling silence that pressed against her ears. It felt as if the very trees were holding their breath, watching her every move. Lily shivered, not from the cold, but from the palpable energy that pulsed in the air around her. After what felt like hours of wandering, she stumbled upon a clearing. In the center stood the remnants of what appeared to be an old stone altar, overgrown with moss and vines. The stones were worn, and strange symbols were etched into their surfaces, symbols that matched those she had seen in her grandmother's diary. A sense of foreboding settled over her, and she hesitated, the gravity of the situation weighing heavily on her. But the pull of curiosity urged her closer. She knelt beside the altar, brushing away the foliage to reveal more of the symbols. They seemed to vibrate under her fingertips, whispering secrets from a forgotten time. She recalled her grandmother's warnings about the darkness that lingered in the family's past, about the price one pays for seeking the truth. As she traced the lines of the carvings, a sudden chill enveloped her. A gust of wind swept through the clearing, rustling the leaves and sending a shiver down her spine. It felt as if something was stirring within the woods, something ancient and restless. Just as she was about to stand, she heard it, a faint whisper that seemed to echo through the trees, a voice that was both familiar and foreign. Lily! Her heart raced. Was it her imagination? Or was someone truly calling her? She looked around, her flashlight beam cutting through the darkness, but there was no one there. Panic gripped her, and she quickly stood up, clutching her grandmother's diary tightly against her chest. Lily, come closer. The voice beckoned again, clearer this time. It was a soft, melodic sound, yet it carried a weight of sorrow that made her blood run cold. Who are you? She called out, her voice trembling. What do you want from me? The woods fell silent, but the air thickened with tension. The whispers returned, swirling around her like a dark mist. Shadows danced in the periphery of her vision, and she could feel the weight of unseen eyes watching her. Find the truth before it's too late, the voice murmured, fading into the night. Lily's instinct screamed at her to flee, but the fear of turning her back on the mystery propelled her forward. She took a deep breath and stepped away from the altar, scanning the surroundings for any sign of the voice's source. The whispers grew more frantic, the urgency palpable. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, stepping into the light of her flashlight. Lily's breath caught in her throat as she recognized the familiar features of her grandmother, but they appeared distorted, like a reflection in a broken mirror. Grandma, she whispered, disbelief flooding her senses. The figure smiled sadly, her eyes filled with a deep sadness that made Lily's heart ache. You must leave this place, Lily. The darkness here is not meant for you. Why? What happened to you? What is this place? Lily's voice broke, desperation clawing at her. There are things in our family's past that you cannot understand. The truth will only bring pain. You must let it go. The apparition's form flickered, like a flame about to be extinguished. I can't just forget. I need to know what happened to you. To Jonathan. Jonathan. The figure hesitated, the sadness deepening. His path was chosen long ago, but yours is still unwritten. Do not follow in his footsteps. Before Lily could respond, the figure began to fade, the light around her dimming. Remember, child, the answers you seek may not bring you peace. Choose wisely. With those final words, her grandmother's figure dissolved into the darkness, leaving Lily alone in the clearing, the weight of her warnings hanging heavy in the air. As the shadows pressed in around her, Lily's heart raced. The echoes of her grandmother's voice intertwined with the whispers of the woods, and she felt a terrifying realization dawning upon her. The darkness was not merely a family curse. It was a choice, one she would have to make soon. With her resolve hardening, she turned back to the altar, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. But before she could gather her thoughts, a rustling in the bushes broke the stillness. Heart pounding, she aimed her flashlight towards the sound. The beam of light sliced through the darkness, illuminating the underbrush. Lily squinted, her heart racing as the rustling continued. What was lurking in the shadows? Every instinct screamed for her to run, but curiosity held her in place, rooted to the ground like the ancient trees surrounding her. Just then, a small creature darted out, a rabbit, its wide eyes reflecting the light like two tiny moons. It froze for a moment, then bounded away into the underbrush, leaving Lily to exhale a shaky breath. The sudden adrenaline rush began to subside, but the unease in the air lingered. She turned back to the altar, hoping to regain her focus, when she noticed something glinting at the base of the stones. Kneeling down, she brushed aside the dirt and leaves to reveal a tarnished key, a heavy, ornate key with intricate designs etched into its surface. It felt warm in her hand, pulsing with a strange energy. Lily's mind raced. Could this key unlock something connected to her family's past? Her grandmother's words echoed in her mind, but the allure of discovery was too strong. She slipped the key in her pocket, determination fueling her next steps. As she stood, she caught a glimpse of movement from the corner of her eye. The shadows seemed to deepen, swirling like a living entity. A chill crept down her spine as the whispers returned, louder and more urgent. "Lily, you must go." Before she could process the warning, a figure emerged from the darkness, stepping into the pale moonlight. It was a man, tall and imposing, his features obscured by a hooded cloak. A sense of dread washed over her. "Who are you?" she called out, trying to sound braver than she felt. The figure remained silent, moving closer, the moonlight glinting off something metallic in his hand. A dagger? The sight sent a jolt of fear through her. "Stay back," Lily shouted, brandishing the flashlight like a weapon. The cloaked figure paused, his head tilting slightly, as if studying her. "You should not be here, child. This place is not safe." His voice was deep, echoing through the clearing. "What do you want?" she demanded, feeling her pulse quicken. He stepped closer, revealing his face. His eyes were an unsettling shade of blue, almost luminous in the darkness. "I am a guardian of this forest. The darkness you seek will consume you if you do not turn back." Lily's mind raced. This man, this guardian, might know something about the mysteries that plague her family. What darkness? What happened to my grandmother? The guardian's expression softened, though the tension in the air remained thick. "Your family is bound to a curse, a cycle of pain that has spanned generations. Your grandmother sought to break it, but was drawn into its depths. You must choose differently." A sense of urgency filled her. "But I can't just leave without knowing. There has to be a way to help her." The guardian shook his head, stepping closer as if the shadows were pulling him back. "The truth lies in the heart of this forest. You must decide whether to pursue it or to protect yourself and your lineage." Before she could respond, a loud crack echoed through the trees, followed by an unsettling growl that reverberated in the air. The guardian's eyes widened, and he turned abruptly, his posture tense. "Go," he commanded. "You're not safe here." The underbrush rustled again, and Lily's heart raced. Panic surged through her. The urgency in his voice spurred her into action. She turned to flee, her flashlight flickering as she ran back toward the path leading out of the woods. "Find the truth, but be prepared for the consequences," the guardian called after her, his voice fading into the shadows. Lily raced through the trees, her feet pounding against the ground. The growls grew louder behind her, echoing in her ears as fear propelled her forward. Just as she thought she might escape, a low growl erupted close behind her, and she dared not look back. Bursting through the edge of the woods, she stumbled onto the familiar trail leading to her grandmother's house. She sprinted towards the door, heart racing, and flung it open, slamming it shut behind her. Breathless and terrified, she leaned against the door, the weight of the key in her pocket feeling heavier than ever. The quiet of the house enveloped her, but the whispers in her mind persisted. She could no longer ignore the choice laid before her. Lily knew she had to confront the truth, no matter how terrifying it might be. The shadows of her past were not done with her yet. The silence of the house pressed in around Lily, amplifying the sound of her heartbeat. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to calm down. The encounter with the guardian echoed in her mind, his warnings lingering like a fog. The weight of the key in her pocket reminded her of the promise she had made to uncover the truth. Determined, she turned toward her grandmother's study. The room was filled with old books, dusty relics of a time long past, and shelves lined with framed photographs that seemed to watch her with wary eyes. She had always found solace in this space, but now it felt suffocating like the walls were closing in. Lily approached the desk, its surface cluttered with papers and mementos. She rifled through the items, searching for any clue that could connect her grandmother to the secrets of the forest. Her fingers brushed against a faded journal, its leather cover worn and cracked. She opened it carefully, revealing pages filled with her grandmother's elegant handwriting. The entries told of strange occurrences in the woods, the whispers, the shadows, and the feeling of being watched. As she read, Lily felt a chill creep over her, as if the very air in the room had thickened. Her grandmother had written about her own experiences, detailing a ritual intended to break the curse that had haunted their family. But there was more. Her grandmother had encountered the same guardian, a man who had warned her of the darkness lurking within the forest. The final entry sent shivers down Lily's spine. "I fear that my time is running out. The shadows are growing stronger, and I can feel their pull. I must venture into the heart of the forest to confront them. I pray that my granddaughter will never have to face this darkness." Tears welled in Lily's eyes as she closed the journal. Her grandmother had fought against something truly malevolent, and now it was her turn to face the shadows. But what if she didn't have the strength to succeed where her grandmother had failed? With a renewed sense of purpose, Lily pulled out the key from her pocket. It felt alive in her hand, thrumming with energy. Where could it lead her? Could it be the key to understanding the curse that had haunted her family for generations? She remembered the stories her grandmother had told her about the old cellar beneath the house, an ancient space that had been sealed off for as long as she could remember. Many times, she had felt drawn to it, as if something inside was calling out to her. Lily set her jaw, determination solidifying within her. She had to go down there. Gripping the key tightly, she headed towards the cellar door, a heavy wooden slab that looked as if it hadn't been opened in years. It was locked, just as she had expected. With a deep breath, she inserted the key into the rusty lock, turning it slowly. It clicked open, the sound echoing in the stillness. As the door creaked open, a wave of cold air washed over her, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and decay. She hesitated for a moment, the darkness below seeming to beckon her. But she steeled herself and descended the creaking stairs. The cellar was vast and musty, filled with the remnants of her family's past. Old furniture draped in dusty sheets, boxes filled with forgotten heirlooms, and cobwebs that seemed to stretch across the walls like a spider's web. Lily turned on her flashlight, the beams slicing through the darkness. As she scanned the room, her heart raced. In one corner, she noticed a large trunk, its surface covered in dust. The trunk was locked, but her heart skipped a beat as she recalled the key still hanging from her fingers. With trembling hands, she approached the trunk and inserted the key into the lock. It clicked open, and she lifted the lid, her breath catching in her throat. Inside were old photographs, letters, and trinkets that seemed to belong to a different time. Among the items lay a small, ornate box, intricately carved and locked. As she examined it, Lily felt a rush of recognition. It was similar to the design she had seen on the key. With a mix of excitement and trepidation, she took the box out and searched for a way to open it. The lock was small and delicate, and she fished around in her pocket, pulling out the key once more. As she inserted it, a loud crack echoed through the cellar, causing her to jump back. The box clicked open, revealing a collection of letters and a pendant, a small locket engraved with a symbol she recognized from her grandmother's journal. Trembling, she opened the locket to find a tiny photograph of her grandmother as a young girl, alongside a mysterious man. Her heart raced. Who was he? Suddenly, a loud noise reverberated through the cellar, rattling the walls and causing the lights to flicker. Fear shot through her, and she quickly shoved the locket in her pocket, determined to find answers. "What is happening?" she whispered to herself, the shadows in the room beginning to shift as if alive. Lily felt a presence in the darkness, a chill creeping up her spine as the whispers returned, growing louder. "Lily," they called, a chorus of voices blending together, urging her deeper into the darkness. Don't forget to subscribe in the channel and like the video for more contents. It started as a routine. Lucy, an aspiring photographer, had a penchant for capturing the world through her lens. Each weekend, she explored abandoned places, parks, and bustling streets, seeking to frame moments that told stories. Her friends often marveled at her ability to find beauty in decay and solitude. Little did she know, her passion would soon lead her down a path of shadows. One sunny Saturday, Lucy decided to visit an old, derelict mansion on the outskirts of town, a place whispered about among local thrill-seekers. It had once been a grand estate, filled with laughter and life, but now stood silent, its windows shattered and walls crumbling. As she approached the mansion, a chill coursed through her, a feeling that something was watching her. Ignoring her instincts, Lucy stepped inside, her camera poised and ready. Dust motes danced in the beams of light streaming through the broken windows, creating an ethereal atmosphere. She moved from room to room, capturing the remnants of the past. A broken piano, faded wallpaper, and a chandelier hanging precariously from the ceiling. With each click of her shutter, she felt more at home among the echoes of forgotten memories. After several hours of shooting, Lucy decided to leave. As she walked back through the halls, she noticed a darkened corner she had overlooked earlier. Curiosity piqued, she ventured toward it, raising her camera to capture the dimly lit space. It was just a small, cluttered room filled with old furniture, but something compelled her to take a picture. Later that night, excited to review her day's work, Lucy uploaded the photos onto her computer. She marveled at the haunting beauty of the mansion, until her gaze landed on the picture taken in that shadowy room. At first glance, it appeared normal, but upon closer inspection, her heart raced. In the corner of the frame, barely discernible, was a figure. It was indistinct, shrouded in shadows, but unmistakably humanoid. Panic washed over her. Had she truly been alone in that room? Determined to get to the bottom of it, Lucy returned to the mansion the next day, her heart pounding with both fear and curiosity. She re-entered the dim room, feeling a weight in the air, as if the very walls were holding their breath. Searching for any sign of life, she found nothing. But as she prepared to leave, she felt a chill skimming down her spine. Someone, or something, was there with her. That night, Lucy couldn't shake the image of the shadowy figure from her mind. She scoured the internet for stories about the mansion, uncovering a tragic history. The original owner had lost his family in a fire decades ago, and it was said that their spirits lingered in the house. It was then that she understood. She hadn't just stumbled upon a ghost. She had captured a fragment of sorrow. Compelled to investigate further, Lucy returned to the mansion several times over the next week, each time bringing her camera. With every photo, the shadow became more pronounced, taking on a form she could almost recognize. As she delved deeper into the history of the family, she learned that the owner, a man named Samuel, had been heartbroken after the loss of his wife and children. The weight of his grief had consumed him, trapping him within the walls of his once happy home. As the days turned into weeks, Lucy's obsession grew. She began to feel a strange connection to Samuel and his family. She started hearing whispers in the photographs, a soft lament carried through time. One night, after developing her latest images, she noticed something unsettling. The shadow now appeared closer, more defined, almost reaching out to her. It was as if Samuel was trying to communicate, to tell his story through her lens. Driven by an unshakable urge, Lucy resolved to host an exhibition of her photographs, showcasing the haunting beauty of the mansion and its tragic past. She wanted to give voice to the shadows that lingered there, to honor the memory of a family lost to time. On the night of the exhibition, the gallery buzzed with excitement. Guests admired her work, captivated by the emotion captured in each frame. But as Lucy stood by her favorite photograph, the one with the shadow in the corner, she felt an inexplicable presence. It was then that the lights flickered and a hush fell over the crowd. Suddenly, the shadowy figure materialized in the corner of the gallery, reflected in the glass of the frame. Gasps filled the room as Lucy realized the figure was now clearer than ever before. It was Samuel, his expression a mix of sorrow and gratitude. The crowd was frozen, and Lucy felt a warmth envelop her, as if Samuel was thanking her for giving him a voice. In that moment, Lucy understood the true power of her photography. It could bridge the gap between the living and the dead. Samuel's story was finally being told, not just through her lens, but through the hearts of those who viewed her work. As the exhibition continued, the atmosphere shifted, the sorrow in the air replaced by a sense of peace. After the exhibition, Lucy knew her journey was just beginning. Inspired by Samuel's story, she decided to delve deeper into the histories of other abandoned places, seeking out the stories of those who had been forgotten. With each photograph, she hoped to illuminate the shadows that haunted the past, giving them a voice that had long been silenced. As weeks turned into months, Lucy became more engrossed in her mission. Her photographs began to attract attention not just from art enthusiasts, but also from historians and paranormal investigators. Each abandoned building she visited revealed new layers of history, and she felt like a time traveler, navigating the lives that had once thrived in these forgotten spaces. One chilly afternoon, she received a message from a historian named Dr. Marcus Hale, who had heard about her work and wanted to collaborate. He was particularly interested in the mansion where Lucy had encountered Samuel's spirit. Intrigued, she agreed to meet him at a local coffee shop to discuss their ideas. Dr. Hale was in his late 40s, with salt and pepper hair and glasses perched on his nose. His passion for history was palpable as he shared tales of the town's past, illuminating the significance of the places Lucy had been exploring. He proposed that they organize a community event to raise awareness about local history and the importance of preserving these sites. People need to understand that these places are more than just abandoned buildings, he said, leaning forward earnestly. They hold stories of joy, sorrow, love, and loss. We can use your photography to bring these stories to life. Excited by the prospect, Lucy began working closely with Dr. Hale. Together, they planned an event that would feature her photographs alongside narratives about the families and individuals who had lived in these houses. The aim was to encourage community members to share their own stories and memories, fostering a connection to the past. As the event approached, Lucy felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety. She was proud of the work she had accomplished, but the thought of sharing her journey with the community was daunting. On the night of the event, the local community center was filled with people, families, curious residents, and those interested in history. Lucy's photographs adorned the walls, each framed image a window into the lives once lived. With Dr. Hale as her co-host, Lucy introduced each photograph, sharing the stories she had uncovered. The atmosphere was charged with emotion as attendees listened to tales of heartache and joy, laughter and loss. Many were moved to share their own memories, recounting stories of relatives who had once lived in the very houses Lucy had documented. As the night wore on, Lucy felt an inexplicable energy in the air, as if the spirits of those long gone were present, listening to their stories being told. The highlight of the evening came when an elderly woman named Agnes approached Lucy, her eyes glistening with tears. "I grew up in that mansion," Agnes said, pointing to one of the photographs. "I lived there with my family until the fire. I thought I had lost all those memories, but seeing this, it feels like they're alive again." Agnes shared her memories of laughter and love that had filled the mansion's halls, her voice trembling with emotion. As she spoke, Lucy felt a profound connection to the past, a sense of duty to preserve these stories. That night, something shifted within Lucy. She realized that her work was not just about capturing shadows or spirits. It was about honoring the lives that had come before. Inspired, she decided to take her project a step further. In the following weeks, Lucy began to focus on a new concept, creating a series of short documentaries that blended her photography with the oral histories of those who had lived in these forgotten places. She believed that by intertwining visual art with personal narratives, she could bring a deeper understanding of the past to the present. However, as she dove deeper into her project, Lucy began to notice strange occurrences. Whispers would follow her as she worked late into the night, and shadows flickered at the edge of her vision when she reviewed her photographs. At first, she brushed it off as her imagination, fueled by the stories she had absorbed. But then, she received an anonymous message on social media that sent a chill down her spine. The message contained a single line: "You should stop digging." Feeling unnerved but undeterred, Lucy brought her concerns to Dr. Hale. He listened carefully, a frown creasing his forehead. "There are always those who wish to keep the past buried," he said cautiously. "But it's crucial to shine a light on these stories. Just be careful. Despite the unease, Lucy pressed on. She spent more time in the mansion, searching for any additional clues about Samuel's family, hoping to uncover more of their story. Each visit brought her closer to the spirits she felt were trying to connect with her, and she continued to document her experiences. One evening, while reviewing the footage from her camera, she captured something that made her blood run cold. In one frame, a shadowy figure stood just beyond the door, peering in with hollow eyes. Lucy's heart raced as she recalled the message she had received. Could it be a warning? Determined to confront whatever was haunting her, Lucy decided to return to the mansion one last time. Armed with her camera and her resolve, she entered the dimly lit space, feeling the weight of the past pressing against her. "Is anyone here?" she called out, her voice echoing through the emptiness. The air felt charged, electric, and for a moment, she thought she saw a flicker of movement in the corner of her eye. As she approached the room where she had first encountered Samuel, the atmosphere shifted, growing colder. Shadows danced around her, swirling like smoke. She raised her camera, instinctively wanting to capture the moment. Suddenly, a whisper floated through the air, clear and chilling. "Leave now." Lucy's heart raced. She felt a mix of fear and determination. "I can't leave," she said, her voice trembling. "I need to tell your story." The shadows thickened, and for a brief moment, she felt a hand brush against her shoulder, as if urging her to turn back. But Lucy stood firm, determined to honor the lives of those who had been silenced. "Show me," she cried, a mix of frustration and desperation in her voice. "Let me help you." And then it happened. The shadows coalesced, forming a figure before her. It was Samuel, his expression now one of sorrow and longing. Lucy felt tears welling in her eyes as she looked into the depths of his gaze, realizing he was trying to communicate something profound. In that moment, the connection between them deepened. Lucy understood that Samuel was not trying to frighten her. He was seeking closure, a way to be remembered. Gathering her courage, she raised her camera, ready to capture the moment. As she clicked the shutter, the shadows enveloped her, and the world around her began to blur. In that instant, she felt an overwhelming surge of emotion, as if she were living the moments of joy and pain that had unfolded within the mansion's walls. The air shimmered, and Lucy realized she was being shown the history that had long been hidden. The visions flooded her mind, laughter echoing in the halls, children playing, a family gathered around a fire. But then, the vision darkened, the fire breaking out, chaos erupting, and screams filling the air. Lucy gasped, feeling the weight of their tragedy. When the visions faded, she found herself back in the dim room, breathless. Samuel stood before her, a look of gratitude in his eyes. Lucy understood then that she needed to share this story, not just through photographs, but also through the voices of those who had been lost. With renewed determination, she vowed to complete her documentary and make Samuel's family a part of the town's narrative once more. The shadows might have whispered warnings, but she would not back down. She would shine a light on their stories and ensure they were never forgotten again. As Lucy returned to her work, the urgency of her mission propelled her forward. She felt a profound responsibility, not just to capture Samuel's story, but to weave together the many narratives she had encountered in her exploration of the town's forgotten spaces. She dedicated herself to documenting the untold tales of families like Samuel's, those whose lives had been forever altered by tragedy. Days turned into weeks as Lucy spent every spare moment editing her footage and organizing the interviews she had conducted. She reached out to Agnes, the elderly woman who had shared her memories at the community event, as well as others who had lived in the houses she had photographed. Each conversation revealed deeper layers of history, personal connections to the places she had explored, and haunting memories that lingered long after the last echoes of laughter had faded. One afternoon, as she sifted through her recordings, a particular interview with Agnes caught her attention. Agnes described a time when she had glimpsed the spirit of a child in the mansion, a figure she believed belonged to a girl named Clara who had perished in the fire. Intrigued, Lucy decided to investigate further, hoping to uncover more about Clara's life and the tragic circumstances surrounding her death. Lucy spent hours researching local archives, poring over historical records, and combing through newspapers from decades past. She discovered that the fire had been devastating, claiming not only the mansion, but also several nearby homes. Among the victims was Clara, just 8 years old, known for her bright laughter and playful spirit. As Lucy dug deeper, she stumbled upon a haunting photograph, a faded image of Clara with a group of children, her smile bright and carefree. Beneath it was a caption that sent shivers down Lucy's spine. Clara Mitchell, beloved daughter, lost in the fire of 1923. That evening, filled with a sense of purpose, Lucy returned to the mansion, armed with the photograph of Clara. She hoped to connect with the spirit of the girl who had once filled the halls with laughter, and to understand the weight of the loss that still lingered in the air. "Clara," Lucy called softly, her voice echoing through the dim space. "Can you hear me? I want to tell your story." The silence that followed felt heavy, as if the very walls were holding their breath. Lucy stepped into the room where she had first seen Samuel, the air thick with anticipation. She held up the photograph, allowing the image of the smiling girl to catch the light. "Look," she urged, "I found your picture. I want to remember you." As she spoke, the temperature in the room dropped dramatically. Lucy felt a chill run down her spine, and a shadow flitted past her vision. Heart racing, she steadied herself. "I know you're here," she whispered, "and I want to honor your memory." In that moment, she felt a presence, subtle yet undeniable, as if Clara were standing beside her. Lucy closed her eyes, concentrating on the feelings swirling around her. She sensed a mixture of joy and sorrow, a longing for recognition and remembrance. Suddenly, a faint giggle echoed through the room, sending a thrill through Lucy. "Clara," she breathed, her heart racing. The laughter was followed by a gentle breeze, and she felt an inexplicable warmth, as if Clara were inviting her to play. Summoning her courage, Lucy began to speak, sharing stories of her own childhood, her laughter, and her dreams. She told Clara about the event she had hosted, the community that had come together to remember those who had lived in the town, and the joy of storytelling. The air shimmered with energy, and for a moment, Lucy felt an undeniable bond forming between them. In the weeks that followed, Lucy became determined to bring Clara's story to light. She began writing a script for her documentary, intertwining her own experiences with Clara's life, hopes, and tragic end. The process felt cathartic, as if Clara were guiding her hand, and Lucy poured her heart into every word. However, as she worked, the strange occurrences returned. Whispers filled her ears late at night, and shadows danced just beyond her vision. One evening, as she reviewed her footage, she noticed a flickering figure appearing in the background of several shots. Always there, always watching. Lucy's heart raced. Could it be Clara? Driven by both fear and fascination, Lucy decided to confront the presence. She set up her camera in the mansion and recorded a direct message to Clara, asking her to reveal herself. "I'm here to tell your story," she spoke firmly. "I want you to be remembered." The air around her felt charged, thick with anticipation. Moments later, the shadows coalesced, and Lucy's breath caught in her throat as a small figure appeared in the corner of her vision. A girl in a flowing white dress, her hair tousled, and a soft smile on her lips. It was Clara. Lucy raised her camera, capturing the fleeting image, her heart pounding. "Clara, I see you," she exclaimed, tears streaming down her face. "I won't let your story be forgotten." But just as quickly as she had appeared, Clara vanished, leaving Lucy feeling both exhilarated and unsettled. She reviewed the footage, her heart racing as she sought to confirm what she had seen. In one frame, there it was, an ethereal outline of the girl, shimmering softly as if caught between worlds. The next day, Lucy met with Dr. Hale to share her discoveries. As she recounted the strange occurrences, she noticed a flicker of concern in his eyes. "You must be careful," he cautioned. "The spirit world can be unpredictable. Clara may not understand your intentions, but I want to help her." Lucy replied passionately, "I need to tell her story." Dr. Hale nodded, his expression serious. "Then you must approach it with respect. Make sure you're honoring her and not forcing her to relive her trauma. Spirits often linger because of unresolved issues." That night, filled with newfound determination, Lucy returned to the mansion. She brought with her the photograph of Clara and the stories she had collected about the girl's life. With her camera rolling, she set up in the room where she had first connected with Clara. "Clara," Lucy began, her voice steady. "I'm here to honor you. I want to tell your story, the joy, the laughter, and the love you brought into this world. You are not forgotten." As she spoke, the air grew heavy with emotion, and a soft glow enveloped the room. Lucy felt the warmth of Clara's spirit surrounding her, and the shadows began to shift, dancing with life. The whispers grew louder, forming words that resonated deep within Lucy's soul. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and Lucy turned to find Clara standing there, a soft smile illuminating her features. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice like the rustle of leaves. "I've waited so long." With a burst of inspiration, Lucy raised her camera and captured the moment, sealing Clara's essence in a frame that would last forever. As she did, the shadows around her began to swirl, and she felt the walls of the mansion tremble with energy. In that fleeting moment, Lucy understood that Clara's story was not just about loss. It was about love, joy, and the memories that would never fade. She promised to share Clara's tale with the world, to ensure that her laughter and spirit lived on. As Lucy left the mansion that night, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. Clara was finally free, and Lucy had become the vessel through which her story would echo into eternity. As days turned into weeks, Lucy poured herself into editing her documentary. She wove together the haunting images, the stories she had gathered, and the beautiful moments she had captured with Clara's spirit. Each piece felt like a puzzle coming together, revealing not only Clara's life, but also the resilience of the community that had loved and lost her. However, despite the progress she was making, the feeling of being watched never left her. Every time she sat down to work, shadows danced just out of sight, and the whispers became a constant background hum. They were both a comfort and a source of unease, a reminder that Clara was still with her. One late evening, as Lucy edited her footage, she received a message from Agnes, the elderly woman who had shared her memories at the community event. "Lucy," the message read, "I've been thinking about your project. There are more stories to tell, more than you could ever imagine. Come visit me." Curiosity piqued, Lucy decided to pay Agnes a visit the following day. As she approached the quaint house, the garden filled with vibrant flowers welcomed her. Agnes greeted her with a warm smile, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "Lucy, dear," Agnes began, inviting her inside. "You're doing important work, but there's so much more to uncover about our town's history. Have you ever heard of the Mitchell family?" Lucy shook her head, intrigued. "No, I haven't. Who were they?" Agnes led Lucy to her living room, adorned with photographs of families long gone. She pulled out a worn scrapbook, its pages yellowed with age. "The Mitchells were once prominent in this town. They lived in the mansion that burned down, the very place you're investigating." Lucy felt a chill run down her spine. "What happened to them?" Agnes flipped through the pages until she landed on a photo of a young girl, Clara's age, standing beside a beautifully dressed woman. "This is Clara's mother, Elizabeth. After the fire, the family fell apart. Elizabeth never recovered from losing her daughter." Lucy leaned in closer, captivated by the photograph. "What happened to Elizabeth?" "She vanished without a trace," Agnes replied, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Some say she wandered into the woods and never returned. Others claim she became a recluse, consumed by grief. But one thing is certain, her spirit has been linked to that mansion ever since." Lucy's heart raced at the thought. "You think Clara's spirit might be connected to her mother's?" Agnes nodded gravely. "I believe so. Clara was the light of Elizabeth's life. When she died, it shattered Elizabeth. I wouldn't be surprised if both of their spirits linger in that house, bound by love and tragedy." Determined to uncover the truth, Lucy spent the next few days researching the Mitchell family, piecing together fragments of their lives. She learned about the joyous moments they had shared and the heartbreak that had ultimately claimed them. As she gathered this information, she began to sense a deeper connection to Clara and her mother. One evening, as she reviewed her footage, Lucy felt an overwhelming urge to return to the mansion. The weight of the Mitchell's story pressed upon her, and she knew she needed to confront the spirits of both Clara and Elizabeth. Armed with her camera and the scrapbook, she made her way to the mansion. The atmosphere felt charged as she stepped inside, a mix of anticipation and trepidation filling her heart. She set up her camera in the same room where she had first encountered Clara. "Clara? Elizabeth?" she called, her voice steady yet gentle. "I'm here to honor your stories. I want to share your love and your pain." The air around her shimmered with energy, and for a moment, Lucy felt a shift in the atmosphere. Shadows began to dance, and she sensed a presence. A feeling of warmth and longing enveloped her like a familiar embrace. "Clara," she whispered, holding up the scrapbook, "I have stories to share about you and your mother." As she opened the scrapbook, the pages fluttered in an unseen breeze. Lucy began to read the entries aloud, sharing the memories of Clara's childhood, the laughter of family gatherings, and the joy that once filled their lives. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept through the room, causing the lights to flicker. Lucy felt the temperature drop, and she could sense the spirits gathering around her. "I see you," she spoke softly, her heart racing. "I know you're both here." In that moment, she saw Clara's figure appear in the corner, her smile radiant and filled with longing. Beside her was a woman with soft features and sorrowful eyes. Elizabeth, Clara's mother. "Thank you," Clara whispered, her voice like the rustle of leaves. "We've waited so long." Lucy felt a tear slip down her cheek as she met their gaze. "I want to tell your story," she promised, her voice trembling. "I want the world to remember you both." Elizabeth stepped forward, her expression a mixture of love and grief. "You've brought us hope," she said, her voice soft yet powerful. "For so long, we've been trapped in our pain." As Lucy continued to read from the scrapbook, the shadows around her danced, swirling with energy. Clara and Elizabeth listened intently, their spirits illuminated by the love Lucy poured into their stories. She felt their presence grow stronger, as if they were becoming part of the narrative she was crafting. After hours of sharing memories, Lucy finally set the scrapbook down, her heart feeling lighter. "You are both so loved, and your stories will live on," she said, her voice filled with conviction. In that moment, a wave of warmth washed over her, and she sensed the spirits of Clara and Elizabeth drawing closer. The shadows around them began to shimmer, revealing glimpses of their past. Laughter, joy, and cherished moments filled the room. As the night wore on, Lucy knew she had forged a connection that transcended time. Clara and Elizabeth were no longer just spirits tied to their tragic past. They were part of a narrative of love, loss, and healing. Together, they would finally be remembered, their stories echoing through the halls of the mansion long after Lucy had left. With a deep sense of fulfillment, Lucy stepped back, giving the spirits space. "Thank you for allowing me to tell your story," she whispered, her heart brimming with gratitude. In that moment, she felt the presence of both Clara and Elizabeth envelop her, a soft embrace that filled her with warmth. And just like that, as quickly as they had appeared, the shadows began to fade, leaving Lucy alone in the room, the air now serene and peaceful. The days following her encounter with Clara and Elizabeth felt surreal for Lucy. The mansion, once a place of sadness and shadows, now felt like a sanctuary, infused with the love and memories she had shared with the spirits. Determined to honor their stories, she threw herself into editing the documentary, weaving together footage, photographs, and the tales of the Mitchell family. As she worked, Lucy found herself revisiting the past, piecing together the emotions and experiences that had shaped Clara and Elizabeth's lives. Each edit brought her closer to understanding the complexities of their relationship, the love that had bound them together, and the grief that had torn them apart. One afternoon, as she sat in her cozy studio, reviewing her work, a notification pinged on her phone. It was a message from an old friend, Mia, who had always been supportive of Lucy's creative endeavors. "Hey, just saw your posts about the documentary. I'm so proud of you. Let's meet up soon." Lucy smiled, her heart warming at the thought of seeing Mia. They hadn't caught up in ages. She replied quickly, suggesting a coffee date at their favorite cafe downtown. Later that week, they met at the cafe, and as they settled into their chairs, Mia leaned forward, curiosity evident in her eyes. "So, tell me everything. How's the documentary going? Any crazy stories?" Lucy chuckled, feeling the excitement bubble inside her. "You won't believe it. I've been uncovering so much about this town's history, and the Mitchell family in particular. Their story is incredible, but it's also heartbreaking." Mia listened intently as Lucy recounted her encounters with Clara and Elizabeth, her voice filled with passion. "It's like I've connected with them in a way I never expected. I truly believe they want their story told, to be remembered." Mia's eyes widened. "That's amazing. I can't wait to see it. Do you have any plans for the premiere?" Lucy hesitated, feeling a twinge of anxiety. "I hadn't thought about it yet. I'm still in the editing phase, but I want to make it special, you know? Maybe host a small screening for friends and family." "That sounds perfect. You should definitely do it." Mia encouraged, her enthusiasm infectious. "And who knows, maybe the local community will want to be involved too." Inspired by Mia's suggestions, Lucy spent the next few days planning the premiere. She reached out to the community center to reserve a space and designed flyers to spread the word. The excitement of sharing Clara and Elizabeth's story with others filled her with a renewed sense of purpose. As the premiere day approached, Lucy felt a blend of anticipation and nervousness. She had invited many of the locals who had shared their memories about the Mitchells, hoping to create an atmosphere of remembrance and connection. On the evening of the premiere, the community center buzzed with energy. Friends, family, and curious locals filled the seats, their faces lit by the soft glow of the projector. Lucy stood at the front, her heart pounding as she introduced the film. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "This documentary is a tribute to Clara and Elizabeth Mitchell, two remarkable women whose stories have been hidden for far too long. I hope their journey resonates with you as much as it has with me." As the film started, Lucy felt a wave of emotions wash over her. The footage came alive, capturing the essence of the Mitchells, the laughter, the sorrow, and the love that intertwined their lives. The room fell silent, the audience engrossed in the journey Lucy had meticulously crafted. Midway through the documentary, Lucy noticed a figure in the back of the room. It was Agnes, her presence both comforting and unsettling. As the film progressed, Lucy could see Agnes leaning forward, her eyes glistening with emotion. After the screening, the audience erupted in applause. Lucy felt a sense of relief and joy wash over her. She had done it. She had shared Clara and Elizabeth's story with the world. As people began to mingle, Lucy made her way over to Agnes. "What did you think?" she asked, her heart racing. Agnes smiled warmly. "You captured their spirits beautifully, dear. It was as if they were right there with us." Just then, a woman approached, her face pale and drawn. "Excuse me," she said, her voice trembling. "I saw your documentary tonight. My name is Sarah. I used to live in the Mitchell mansion. I think I've seen Clara." Lucy's heart raced at the revelation. "What do you mean?" "I had strange experiences when I lived there, footsteps, whispers, but one night, I actually saw her. She was standing in the hallway, looking lost. I thought I was dreaming, but it felt so real." Lucy leaned in closer, captivated. "What happened next?" "I don't know," Sarah admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I ran out of that house, and I've never returned. But tonight, when I saw the documentary, I felt compelled to come here. I think Clara is still searching for something, and I want to help." Lucy felt a chill run down her spine. "What do you mean? What do you think she's searching for?" "I don't know yet," Sarah replied, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and determination. "But I feel like there's more to her story than what you've uncovered. Maybe we can figure it out together." As the night unfolded, Lucy's mind buzzed with possibilities. Clara's spirit had not only connected with her, but had reached out to others, revealing that her story was far from over. "Let's meet tomorrow," Lucy suggested, her heart racing with excitement. "I'd love to hear more about your experiences. Maybe together we can uncover what Clara truly wants." "Absolutely," Sarah agreed, her expression resolute. "I believe she's still trying to communicate with us. We just have to listen." Lucy felt a surge of hope as they exchanged contact information. Perhaps the journey to uncover Clara's story was about to take a new turn. leading her deeper into the heart of the mystery that had haunted the Mitchell family for generations. With newfound determination, Lucy left the community center, eager to see what revelations awaited her in the days to come. Don't forget to subscribe in the channel and like the video for more contents. In a quiet town, nestled between sprawling fields and dense forests, stood an old Victorian house that had long been abandoned. Its windows were boarded up, and wild vines climbed the walls, giving it an air of mystery. The townsfolk whispered stories about the house, how it was once a lively home, filled with laughter and joy, but had become a shell of its former self after the tragic disappearance of a young child named Lily. The house had recently caught the attention of Alex, an aspiring photographer with a penchant for the eerie and unusual. Intrigued by the tales surrounding the old place, he decided to explore it, hoping to capture its haunting beauty through his lens. With his camera in hand and a flashlight clipped to his belt, he approached the creaky front door. As Alex stepped inside, the smell of mildew and decay enveloped him. Dust particles floated in the beam of his flashlight, creating a magical yet unsettling atmosphere. He made his way through the darkened hallways, taking pictures of the peeling wallpaper and the remnants of furniture that lay scattered like forgotten memories. Eventually, he found himself in a nursery filled with old toys and a faded rocking chair. The room was cloaked in an eerie silence, interrupted only by the soft creaking of the house settling. The sight of the nursery pulled at something deep within him. He felt a strange connection to the child who once played here. On a dusty shelf, he spotted an old music box, its delicate carvings almost hidden beneath layers of grime. Curiosity piqued, Alex reached for it, wiping the dust away with his sleeve. As he turned the key, a soft, haunting melody filled the air. The tune was familiar, evoking memories of childhood lullabies but twisted into something darker. Hush-a-bye, don't you cry. In the night, shadows fly. Close your eyes, say goodbye. When the clock strikes, let them lie. The nursery seemed to come alive as the music played, shadows flickering in the corners. Alex felt a chill run down his spine as he turned to see the rocking chair gently swaying back and forth, although no one was seated in it. The melody continued, echoing ominously in his ears. He stepped closer to the rocking chair, heart pounding, when suddenly the music box stopped. The silence that followed felt heavy and suffocating. Just as he was about to leave, he heard a soft giggle, a child's laugh that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere all at once. "Play with us," the voice whispered, barely above a breath. Alex froze, fear gripping him. "Who's there?" he called out, but the only response was a fluttering of shadows. Compelled by an unknown force, he glanced around the room, noticing the toys. They were arranged as if they were waiting for someone to join them. A circle of stuffed animals, their button eyes gleaming in the darkness. He took a step back, uncertainty washing over him. "Stay and play, Alex," the voice urged again, sweeter now, with an enchanting lilt. "We want to have fun." Before he could respond, the air thickened and the lights flickered. The walls of the nursery seemed to close in around him. Panic surged through him as he turned to escape, but the door slammed shut with a deafening bang, leaving him trapped inside. "Let's play hide and seek," the voice giggled, echoing off the walls. The toys began to move, their heads turning toward him, grinning in unison. "You can't hide from us, Alex. We'll find you." Adrenaline coursed through his veins as he desperately searched for a way out. The room twisted, and the shadows writhed, becoming tangible, wrapping around his legs like icy fingers. The nursery had transformed from a simple room into a dark abyss, and Alex realized too late that the stories he had heard were more than just tales. This place held secrets, dark and terrifying truths that had been buried with the memories of a lost child. As the whispers grew louder, echoing in his mind, he understood that he was no longer just a visitor. He had become part of the nursery's haunting legacy. Alex's heart raced as he frantically scanned the nursery for any possible escape. The laughter of the unseen children reverberated around him, growing louder and more chaotic. Desperately, he pushed against the door, but it wouldn't budge. It felt as if something unseen was holding it shut, feeding off his fear. Come out, wherever you are." The voice chimed, playful yet menacing. "We want to play." In a last-ditch effort, Alex turned to the rocking chair, now still but seemingly watching him. He wondered if there was a way to distract the entities before him. He noticed a small door behind the chair. Perhaps it led to the attic or another part of the house. Taking a deep breath, he sprinted toward it, hoping it would open. He grasped the handle and twisted, praying it would give way. To his relief, it creaked open, revealing a dark, narrow passageway. He could hear the faint melody of the music box lingering in the air, but the laughter of the children seemed to grow faint. "Where are you going, Alex?" the voice whined, slightly more insistent now. "The game has just begun." Without looking back, he slipped into the passageway, pulling the door shut behind him. The cramped space was lined with cobwebs and shadows, and the faint smell of dust and something rotten filled his nostrils. He moved cautiously, the narrow corridor twisting and turning like a labyrinth. As he crept further in, the soft light from his flashlight flickered ominously, casting eerie shapes against the walls. Just as he thought he could catch his breath, the laughter erupted once more, echoing around him, bouncing off the walls, and making it impossible to discern where it originated. "Found you," they giggled, and Alex could feel their presence close behind him, their breaths cold against his neck. Panic surged through him, urging him to move faster. The passage led him into a dimly lit room filled with old toys, discarded clothes, and forgotten memories. A small window was embedded in one wall, letting in a sliver of moonlight, illuminating the dust motes swirling in the air. "What is this place?" he whispered, looking around at the remnants of what appeared to be a long-abandoned playroom. The walls were adorned with faded murals of cheerful children playing in a sunlit field, a stark contrast to the sinister atmosphere surrounding him. "Do you want to play with us?" The voice called again, now a cacophony of whispers that filled his mind. "We have so much fun here. Don't you want to join us?" A chill ran down his spine as he realized that he had stumbled into the very heart of their game. With no way to escape, he felt a surge of anger and fear. "I just want to leave," he shouted into the darkness. The laughter turned to silence, heavy and suffocating. Then, a soft voice broke the quiet, almost tenderly. "You can't leave, Alex. You belong to us now. We need a friend to play forever." Suddenly, the toys around him began to move on their own. Dolls with glassy eyes blinked, and stuffed animals seemed to stretch and yawn as if awakening from a long sleep. The rocking chair began to sway gently, as if inviting him to sit. "No," he screamed, stepping back. He had to find a way out. The last thing he wanted was to become a part of this nightmare. He scanned the room for another exit, and his eyes landed on a small door in the far corner. With no time to lose, he dashed toward it, his heart pounding. He grasped the doorknob and turned it, praying it would open. To his relief, it creaked ajar, revealing a steep staircase leading down into darkness. Without hesitation, he descended into the depths below, the laughter of the children now fading behind him. Each step echoed ominously in the silence, and the air grew colder, wrapping around him like a chilling embrace. As he reached the bottom, he found himself in a vast cellar, dimly lit by flickering candles placed on old crates. Shadows danced against the walls, creating a distorted tapestry of fear. In the center of the cellar was a large, ornate mirror, its surface reflecting not just his image but also fleeting glimpses of figures he couldn't quite make out. What was this place? And how deep did the mysteries of the house go? The atmosphere in the cellar felt heavy, oppressive, as if the air itself were saturated with secrets waiting to be uncovered. Alex stepped closer to the mirror, compelled by an unseen force. The flickering candlelight cast ghostly reflections, warping his image as he approached. It felt like stepping into another realm. As he peered into the glass, his heart raced. The reflection didn't just show him. It revealed shadows lurking just behind him, figures with hollow eyes and twisted smiles. He turned, expecting to see the children from the nursery, but found nothing. Just darkness. "What is this?" he whispered, reaching out to touch the cool surface of the mirror. As his fingers grazed the glass, a surge of energy coursed through him, and he felt a strange connection to the images swirling within. Faces appeared and disappeared, each one more sorrowful than the last, each telling a story of joy turned to despair. Suddenly, a voice echoed from the depths of the cellar, a whisper that felt like ice water running down his spine. Help us escape." Alex recoiled, pulling his hand back. "Who are you?" he demanded, looking around, but the shadows remained silent. The voices grew louder, a cacophony of cries, pleading and desperate. "Join us," they chorused, their tone shifting to a melodic chant that resonated within his mind. "We need you to play with us forever." Panic bubbled up inside him. He took a step back, but the mirror seemed to pulse, drawing him closer again. He could feel it tugging at his thoughts, trying to ensnare him in its grasp. Desperate, he tore his gaze away, searching for another way out. "Get out," he shouted, desperation coloring his voice. "You're not real." The laughter erupted again, now intermingled with cries that echoed off the walls. It was a haunting symphony of despair. He turned and ran back toward the staircase, but as he did, the cellar began to shift around him. The walls warped, elongating, creating a maze of shadows that twisted into impossible shapes. As he stumbled through the darkness, the whispers followed him. "You can't escape us, Alex. We've been waiting for someone like you." With adrenaline pumping through his veins, he pressed on, determined to find an exit. The laughter grew distant, but the urgency remained, a pressing reminder that he was still in danger. Just as he reached the base of the stairs, he spotted a glimmer of light coming from the far end of the cellar. It flickered like a beacon, promising safety and hope. He sprinted toward it, heart racing with every step. As he neared the source of light, he found it emanating from an old, rusted lantern perched on a pile of debris. The light was dim, but it illuminated a path leading to a small door tucked away in the corner. Relief flooded over him. "Please, let this be a way out," he breathed, gripping the lantern tightly as he approached the door. It looked ancient, covered in peeling paint and intricate carvings that seemed to tell a story of their own. He hesitated, glancing over his shoulder as the whispers grew softer, almost like a lullaby now. "We just want to play," they murmured, but he refused to give in. Taking a deep breath, he pushed the door open. It creaked loudly, and he felt a gust of cool air wash over him, carrying the scent of damp earth and fresh rain. Stepping through, he found himself in a narrow alleyway, surrounded by tall, crumbling buildings that seemed to lean in, as if they were eavesdropping on his every move. But as he stepped further into the alley, he realized it wasn't just any alley. It was the back street of his neighborhood, the same street he had walked countless times before. How had he gotten here? And more importantly, was he truly free from whatever had haunted him in that house? Before he could ponder it further, he heard the unmistakable sound of laughter behind him, echoing down the alleyway. He spun around, heart in his throat, and saw shadows flickering in the entrance of the house he had just escaped. "Alex," they called, their voices blending into a haunting chorus. "You can't leave us. We need you." Terrified, he turned and ran, heart pounding in his ears. The shadows pursued him, racing through the alley with an otherworldly speed. They were closer now, and he could feel the coldness of their presence wrapping around him like a shroud. "Get away," he shouted, pushing himself to run faster. He dashed down the street, weaving through the familiar buildings, desperately searching for a safe haven. The alleyway stretched endlessly as Alex sprinted, the laughter of the shadows ringing in his ears, an eerie echo that felt all too real. Each step he took sent a jolt of fear through his veins, propelling him forward with a desperate need to escape. The streets he had once known so well now seemed foreign and foreboding, morphing into a labyrinth of dread. He turned a corner, racing past a row of darkened storefronts. Each window was a reflection of his growing panic. The glass stared back at him, like soulless eyes, mocking his fear. He glanced over his shoulder, half expecting to see the shadows gaining on him, but instead found only the empty street behind him. "Keep running," he urged himself, pushing through the tight knot of fear that had settled in his stomach. He needed to get to safety, away from whatever had been awakened in that house. The streets twisted and turned, but instinct guided him toward the park where he often found solace. As he approached the entrance of the park, he spotted a familiar silhouette, Laura, a childhood friend, sitting on a bench, her figure illuminated by the soft glow of a street lamp. Relief washed over him for a brief moment. She was a beacon of comfort in a world turned upside down. "Laura," he called, skidding to a halt. "You have to help me." She looked up, her expression shifting from confusion to concern. "Alex? What's wrong?" Before he could respond, he felt a chill envelop him, and he instinctively stepped closer to her. "Something is following me," he panted, glancing back at the path he had come from, half expecting the shadows to materialize at any moment. "What do you mean?" Laura asked, rising from the bench, concern etching her features. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "It's not just a ghost. It's something else," he explained, urgency spilling from his lips. "At my house, there was this mirror." Suddenly, the laughter rang out again, cutting through the night like glass shattering. Alex's heart sank as he turned to see dark figures emerging from the shadows of the trees lining the park. "Alex," they whispered, their voices low and melodic, yet chilling. "We're here to play." "Run," he shouted, grabbing Lara's wrist, and they dashed deeper into the park, away from the menacing figures. The shadows trailed behind them, their laughter echoing off the trees, growing louder and more distorted with each step. "Where are we going?" Lara gasped, trying to keep pace. "To the old fountain," Alex urged, recalling the secluded spot they used to visit as kids. It was a place of refuge, a place where they could hide and feel safe. "It's our only chance." They weaved through the pathways, branches clawing at them as if trying to hold them back. Alex could feel the chill of the shadows closing in, their presence suffocating. "Don't look back," he shouted, focusing on the path ahead, the fountain glowing faintly in the distance. With every step, he felt the shadows creeping closer, their icy breath brushing against his neck, urging him to turn and join them. Finally, they burst into a small clearing where the old fountain stood, its water shimmering under the moonlight. But there was no time to catch their breath. The shadows converged around them, dark tendrils reaching out, threatening to ensnare them. "Alex, what do we do?" Lara cried, panic in her voice. He looked around frantically, spotting an old statue beside the fountain. It depicted a woman with outstretched arms, a serene expression on her face. "We need to break the connection," he shouted, rushing toward the statue. "Maybe it can help." They approached the statue, its stone surface cool against his fingertips. The shadows hissed in anger, swirling around them like a storm. "You can't escape," they echoed, their voices rising to a fever pitch. "You belong with us." Alex grasped the statue's arms and pulled with all his might, while Lara joined him, fear fueling their strength. The shadows writhed and shrieked, their anger palpable as they attempted to claw their way into their minds. "On the count of 3, Alex said, his voice steady despite the chaos. 1, 2, 3. With a combined force, they heaved the statue, and it tipped, crashing into the fountain. Water surged around them as the fountain erupted, sending a spray into the air. The shadows screamed, recoiling from the cascading water. "Keep going," Alex urged, watching as the shadows began to dissipate under the force of the water. They pushed the statue deeper into the fountain, splashing water over it until a shimmering barrier formed between them and the shadows. "Get away," Lara shouted, stepping forward to shield Alex, as if the statue could provide them refuge. The shadows shrieked in frustration, their forms flickering in and out, trying to find a way through. "You can't escape your past," they screeched, echoing the memories they held captive. As the last remnants of darkness began to fade, Alex felt a strange warmth envelop him. The water sparkled as it flowed around the statue, creating a protective cocoon. "Is it over?" Lara asked, her voice trembling as she glanced at the diminishing shadows. "I think so," Alex replied, breathing heavily as he leaned against the statue for support. But as they stood there, a chilling realization dawned on him. "We need to make sure it doesn't come back. We have to break the connection for good." The waters of the fountain sparkled beneath the moonlight, casting a mesmerizing glow around them. But the weight of what they had just faced hung heavily in the air, a reminder that the shadows could return if they weren't careful. "We need to find a way to break the connection completely," Alex said, still panting. If those shadows were drawn to the mirror at my house, there has to be something linking them to it. Laura nodded, glancing back at the fountain, where the remnants of darkness were slowly dissipating. Maybe the mirror itself holds the key, she suggested, her brow furrowing in thought. If we can destroy it, perhaps we can sever whatever ties they have to this world. Yeah, Alex replied, his mind racing. But how do we destroy something like that? It was old, and it felt powerful. Maybe we can find something in the library, Laura proposed, her eyes lighting up with an idea. Old books, artifacts, they might have information on how to deal with things like this. Good thinking, Alex said, relief flooding through him. Let's head back to my place and figure it out. As they made their way back through the park, the atmosphere felt different, less oppressive but still tense. The faint echoes of the shadows' laughter lingered in the back of Alex's mind, a haunting reminder of what they had narrowly escaped. Once they reached his apartment, Alex hurried inside, flicking on the lights. The familiar surroundings offered little comfort. The mirror stood ominously in the corner, its surface reflecting their unease. Let's see if we can find anything useful, Laura said, heading to the bookshelf filled with old family records and dusty volumes. As she searched, Alex approached the mirror, hesitating before touching its surface. He could almost hear whispers, faint but insistent, pulling at his consciousness. "What are you hiding?" he murmured to himself, determined to confront whatever lay within. "Alex, look at this," Laura called, breaking his concentration. He turned to see her holding an ancient-looking book, its cover worn and tattered. "It's a collection of local legends and myths," she explained, flipping through the yellowed pages. "There's something about mirrors and spirits in here." "What does it say?" Alex asked, moving closer, his curiosity piqued. Lara's finger traced the text. "It talks about a cursed mirror that draws in dark energies, feeding off the fears and secrets of those who gaze into it. To destroy it, one must reflect the darkness back upon itself, using a sacred element." "A sacred element?" Alex echoed, frowning. "Like what? Water from a pure spring, maybe?" Laura suggested, her eyes widening with realization. "We could use the fountain. It might have the power we need." "Let's do it," Alex agreed, determination washing over him. "We need to get back there before it's too late." They rushed out of the apartment, making their way back to the park. As they approached the fountain, Alex felt a strange energy in the air, a mix of anticipation and fear. "What do we do now?" Laura asked, glancing around for any signs of the shadows. "First, we need to position the mirror near the fountain," Alex instructed, his heart racing. "Then, we'll use the water to channel whatever energy it has left." As they maneuvered the mirror closer to the fountain, Alex noticed the shadows lurking just beyond the trees, their forms twisting and flickering in the dim light. "We have to be quick," he urged, adrenaline surging through him. With a deep breath, they positioned the mirror so that it faced the fountain. "Now what?" Laura asked, anxiety lacing her voice. "We need to pour the water over it," Alex replied, looking around for something to use. "Do you have a container?" "I think I saw one in the park," she said, darting away for a moment. While she was gone, Alex stood by the mirror, the shadows inching closer. He could hear their whispers, taunting him, filling his mind with doubt. "You think you can escape us?" they hissed. "You're bound to us. Leave me alone," he shouted, shaking his head, trying to block out the noise. Just then, Laura returned with a small bucket. "Got it," she exclaimed, breathless. "Great. Let's do this," Alex said, filling the bucket with the cool water from the fountain. He felt its energy pulse, invigorating him as he poured it over the mirror's surface. The water cascaded down the mirror, and for a moment, nothing happened. But then, a shiver ran through the air, and the reflection began to warp, twisting into a swirling vortex of light and darkness. "Keep pouring," Alex urged, as the shadows shrieked in fury, their forms growing more unstable. As the last remnants of water splashed onto the mirror, the vortex expanded, illuminating the area with a brilliant light. The shadows writhed and recoiled, their laughter turning to screams of desperation. "Now, break the connection," Alex yelled, pushing the mirror forward into the fountain stream. With a sudden explosion of energy, the mirror shattered, the sound echoing through the park like thunder. The shards glimmered in the moonlight, casting a dazzling array of colors across the ground. The shadows, caught in the brightness, dissolved into wisps of smoke, their cries fading into nothingness. "We did it!" Laura shouted, a wide smile spreading across her face. Alex felt a weight lift from his shoulders as the final remnants of darkness dissipated. "I can't believe it worked," he breathed, exhilarated yet exhausted. But as they stood together, the remnants of the past still lingered in their minds. The connection had been severed, but the memory of the shadows would forever remain etched in their hearts. "We need to make sure it never happens again," Alex said, turning to Laura, determination glinting in his eyes. "We have to protect this place." She nodded, a newfound resolve forming between them. "Together," she replied, extending her hand. As they clasped hands, the first light of dawn broke through the trees, illuminating their path forward. Don't forget to subscribe in the channel and like the video for more contents.